All right, everyone, welcome to Thrive in 25. Thank you so much for being here today. I want to kick off today's event and just thank everyone for coming here. It's really great to see faces we haven't seen in a while and to see a lot of familiar people. Want to introduce my portfolio commercial group. You guys know Dustin Wright, Barry Nations, Monica Junn, and Austin Fletcher. We are a commercial group at Keller Williams Southlake, and today we one of the sponsors for Thrive in 25, goal planning and kind of just set expectations for the next year here. Before we get started, I did want to say happy Veterans Day. Thank you everybody who helped serve our country. Thank you everyone who has family or loved ones who are in the active military. If we're looking towards 2025 and driving in next year.
Time out. If you're a veteran, would you say that for me, please?
That's a good idea.
There you go.
Next year in Thrive 2025, we really got to remember what to get there, and got to be thankful for it all. So, without further ado, I would like to hand it off to Dustin Wright over here, who's going to kick off Thrive 25.
It's Matt's favorite thing to do public speaking, so he loves it. He loves it so much. In fact, you know what? How about I won't give a talk today. We'll just let Matt do it. Matt, is something good? No, we're great, yes. Portfolio Commercial Group, we would love to do business with you. If you're looking for a commercial partner to work on deals with, we would love to do that. There we go, there's my tagline. Contact Matt, he's your partner liaison, if you want to know more about that. Today's thing, we're going to move quickly because we've got a tight agenda. So, first off, look around the room. Anybody see familiar faces? So, the goal of today was something, Leslie and I were having this conversation. And we love you guys, and it doesn't matter what brokerage we're with, but don't call us and ask us questions about stuff. And we were kind of just having a, let's compare notes, like, because our people are asking this and our people are asking that. And so we just kind of had this like, hey, you know what? I got an idea. What if we got everybody in one room, regardless of brokerage, that we consider our people, right? Because y'all know, if you didn't know, when you do the job, this team leader job that I did for 9.5 years and she did for 9.5 years, so collectively for almost the last 2 decades, right? You go through life with people. You don't just run a brokerage, you go through stuff with them. And when you go through stuff, that stuff doesn't go away. Like it just doesn't end just because you don't have an employee thing anymore, right? Like I'm not collecting a W-2 check, but all the stuff that I've been through with y'all, like it just doesn't fade. And it's the same way for Leslie. So it's like, hey, what if we got in a room and we realized, hey, so, you know the best place to do it? The place where we're all unified under one thing. And this is our board, right? Because we're all realtors, yes? So because of where that was the real kind of backing behind this was, yes, to do a little bit of a family reunion, if you will, okay? But also to make sure that we kind of get through and we really focus on some things changing that are coming at us, because we've got some really unique things coming our way this next year that we need to be prepared for. And we just felt like, hey, we need to get ahead of this and do what we can and, you know, do what we do, right? Like, we can't help but just put you guys together and go, hey, this is how we need to go focus and go hit this next year. So everybody good with that? Officially, we're like, so what do we do here again? And what's the point? And are we selling Ginsu knives at the end? You know, maybe. We might be selling Ginsu knives at the end. We'll just see. We've got a series of kind of speakers we're going to bring up. Lance, I don't even see you, dude. There you are. Lance, get your tail up. You crazy guy. So I'm going to give you a quick setup. So Lance Dunahoe, if you don't know Lance, Lance has ran Inspect360 for many, many years. Home inspection company, been around a long time. Been a huge sponsor and friend of ours for a very long time. But as of the last few years, he's also been the editor of Real Producers, specifically for Tarrant County. And I asked Lance to talk to us because one, for those of you who know my Keller Williams people, he's one thing certified, so he's got that DNA within him. And the other part that you should know about Lance is he is interacting with top producing agents on a regular basis, interviewing them and asking questions to find out what's going on in their business and how they're thinking about this next year. And so I asked him to share some of the things that he's been asking even some of y'all what are some of the approaches for next year? So give a big hand to my guy, Lance Dunahoe.
All right, I'm gonna use two mics. Actually, I may stay close here just so I stay on track. But yeah, I wear a lot of hats, as you can tell by my profile here. But I am the owner of Inspect360. Inspect360, we're a home inspection company. We've been here in DFW since 2006. We've done nearly 40,000 home inspections. That's 40,000 real estate transactions that we've been a part of. And I've got an amazing team of 6 inspectors actually, 2 Spanish speakers, all led by my GM back here, Mr. Eli Howard. Eli, you stand up. You'll have any home inspection questions back here? He's your man. I'm also the co-owner of DFW Real Producers Magazine with my partner Jordan Rasmusson. I see many of you in the room that are part of our community and have been to our events, but Real Producers essentially is just that. It's a community of the top producing agents and the businesses that they love and trust, their clients to, their livelihood to, right? And so we of course share your stories, those struggles on the way to success, and the good and the impact that you're having with your success. It's not just the brag book. And of course we do that through our magazine. And many of you have been featured. I recognize some folks that have been on the cover of that magazine here. So in fact, if you are receiving Real Producers, you're part of our community, raise your hand real quick. Right on, right on. Okay, so these are some of the folks that I'm going to be talking about today. I'm also the co-owner of Studio USA with my partner, Mr. Rick Davis, who's back here doing some videography. Studio USA was born out of I guess, Rick's been in, Rick, how many years? 20-something years in real estate? More or less? Más o menos? Yeah. So, oh, by the way, happy birthday, Rick.
Hey, happy birthday!
Can I share? It's 20 years of sobriety for this man, and he's an inspiration to me every day. So, I love you. Studio USA started off as a real estate photography company that has evolved into a real estate marketing company. And it really came out of just this need. We found out that as we were taking photos of houses that needed to get that out there a little bit further. And so it was creating content that realtors could share that on social media. So all that to be said, I am in the middle of a lot of real estate conversations, as you can imagine. And I'm going to stick to my notes here for just a second. But first off, were y'all all kind of surprised? Were you expecting Dustin to show up in like a seersucker jacket or something and put up a suntan block on his nose?
Fedora, yeah.
Yeah, it really was kind of. All right, so really what I want to do today is just share some of the insights that I've garnered from my conversations with you as the top producing agents. And really, you're the folks that are not just surviving, but you're thriving in this ever-evolving, ever-changing market. So these agents are leading the way by embracing really 3 things that I kind of keep hearing over and over again that seems to kind of connect them. Number 1, they're adapting to the market correction. I'll explain that in a second. 2, they're nurturing relationships with their trusted vendor partners to create mutual growth and referrals. And then 3, they're building their sphere of influence with video and social media. Now these are strategies that are rooted in connection, right? They're about building on these relationships. And as we're sitting down with these agents, and the real producers, we literally sit down with probably 8 to 10 top producing agents a week to hear these stories. But these are the things that are driving them, that are really feeding their funnel for 2025. So we're going to just jump right in. So let's begin with market correction. The agents that I've spoken with understand that real estate, this landscape has changed, but instead of retreating, we did see there was a correction, right? That there were a lot of folks that have pulled back, that are not in this room, that might have been in this room last year. Did y'all see that? You know, it was a bit of a culling. But instead of retreating, they're using this moment as an opportunity to sharpen their skills and refine their approach. And the way they were doing that, I think kind of started with, do you remember those first conversations you had with your clients? If you had a listing around the time that the market shifted, and it was like days, suddenly the value of that property dropped. And you suddenly had to start explaining things to them. They were like we're going to have to drop that by $10, $20, $30, $40,000. And so you were having to now go back to your realtor boards, to MetroTex. Everybody had been kind of riding the emotional wave of real estate, and now suddenly it was like, let's look at the data to back up what's happening. And so what we saw, that the folks that were embracing this correction were folks that were leaning into the data. They were actually now doing things that were supporting those conversations. And there was a lot of folks that didn't know how to do that because they hadn't had to do that before. And so they're educating their clients, they're getting hyper-local, but they're setting expectations, right? Because your scripts changed. For those folks that have of course, done a lot of the training, like Dustin, I was a MAPS coach for one point on the MAPS business side, and the scripts were important. You know, if you're part of the KW universe, you've sat through, probably gone through and looked at every one of Diana Kokoska's scripts that she created for handling objections. Suddenly those became very, very important, and they flipped a bit, right? Y'all saw that? Also, we saw that these agents were getting creative. These are the conversations that I'm having. They suddenly were now having to mine these referrals from other sources, from off-market opportunities as a buyer's agent. But also on the listing side, they were using some strategies like pre-listing home inspections, which we're seeing again now as this market is shifting more towards a buyer's market. In fact, we've even created a program for a couple agents just to help that situation put the house, on the market with its best face forward, where you're doing a pre-listing inspection, going ahead and doing all the repairs, and getting the house ready for some beautiful photography. But those type of strategies just get a little bit more creative about the listings that they have. And then, of course, it just comes down to double downing on relationships, focusing on your past clients and referrals, your partners, and nurturing those relationships. Those are the places that you're getting your warmest leads. So it's about going deep instead of wide. I think a lot of us took that shotgun approach, and now we go, there's power in our relationships. This is a relationship industry. Do y'all agree? Amen? Can I get an amen? So these agents are not passively waiting for the market to normalize. This is the new normal, and they're taking control. So they're becoming indispensable resources and positioning themselves as trusted advisors. So the second strategy that I'm hearing that is creating some incredible momentum for these agents is their approach, and kind of a new approach to their partner relationships. They understand that strong relationships with trusted vendors aren't just about transactions, but they're about mutual growth. As you guys have heard many times, no one succeeds alone. And the folks that you trust this transaction to, you turn over, with that, your home inspector, your photographer, your lender, your title, your roofer, your insurance person, they're the folks that are helping you get this transaction over the goal line. And those people are critical to your business, to your livelihood. And so what we're seeing is more agents now have a tendency to collaborate marketing efforts. Agents are co-creating content with vendors, co-branded videos, neighborhood spotlights, educational seminars and webinars that are both promoting business while providing value to their clients. And this approach is helping agents and vendors align their goals, creating synergy and elevating all these mutual opportunities. Have y'all seen that? Have y'all been working with your partners a little bit more, getting a bit more intentional? I think we're seeing this. There was such a tendency for so long to treat partners as just, they're the folks that are paying for my client appreciation event, right? But we're also starting to see that agents are starting to be sponsoring vendor events. Instead of always asking vendors to sponsor their events, these agents are actually flipping that script, and they're supporting vendor-hosted events like fundraisers. And all this is just about deepening those relationships and showing that commitment to the partnership and building goodwill. Has anybody tried that? Have you approached any of your partners and said, hey, do you have anything coming up that I can help support you? We're going to get to the good benefit of that. The third thing, some of the folks that, you know who Dennis Tuttle is? I remember Dennis, he was a KW guy. He's the master of this. He actually, 2 years ago, just totally surprised me. He called me up, I think it was, for around Christmas, and he's like, hey, we're having a party. And I just thought, here it comes. He's going to ask me to sponsor his Christmas party. And instead, he said, no, this one's for our vendors. We're actually hosting a vendor appreciation event. So there's agents who are organizing events to celebrate their vendors, and these events are building camaraderie that show that the partner is truly valued. Can y'all see how this is kind of flipping what has been kind of that traditional? And these are the conversations that we're having with top producers that really seem to understand how important it is to pour into their vendors. So here's the game changer. This approach doesn't just deepen relationships. but it leads to vendor referrals. Imagine if you hosted a vendor, thank you appreciation party. What are they going to think of when they're talking to their clients and their neighbors when somebody's talking about real estate? It's amazing, and that was something that Dennis kind of brought to my attention. So you're far more likely to be recommended in that way. So this kind of collaboration creates a ripple effect, and it grows business for both sides while enhancing the client experience. So I'm going to jump into one more thing here because I think it's important. You guys know the importance of video, right? And of course, I just conveniently happen to go in the studio where we do a lot of these things. You've been told, you guys know this, right? This is no news. Has anybody ever been to one of Kyle Draper's classes? Yeah, Kyle, yeah. He helps folks get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's true. I know that when I look back and see this, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, what an idiot. Y'all don't care. As Rick says, nobody cares. But it's true. We get in our own way. And really, the video is such a powerful tool. So here's how the top agents are really raising their visibility and also their authenticity, because that's what translates. And it's probably the key connector in all the conversations. When I sat down with you, you aren't trying to be Dustin or Leslie. I mean, y'all would love to be. But it's you being the best version of yourself. And so creating authentic stories, authentic storytelling, sharing personal journeys, behind the scene moments, whether that be with your family or on a transaction, it might be even when things go wrong, right? It's the real side of real estate. And really just getting involved in the community. Creating educational content, those 1 minute little video clips that you guys, 1 minute motivational moments, all that, people watch it. You may think, I saw Todd Bingham back here the other day creating some great stuff, and I see the likes and all that stuff, just putting himself out there, and that wasn't easy for you, was it, buddy? Yeah. What inspired you to do that? Tell me about that real quick.
Well, I just think, we spend a lot of time in classes and at least I do, but it's easy to learn something but hard to actually execute on it, and Kyle Draper kind of pushed me to just actually do what we're talking about in class.
Yeah, and you did it immediately. You kind of, taking bold, that you have to pick up the phone before you even really know what you're supposed to say, you just follow the script. You really followed something like that, but it kind of conditioned you to just put yourself out there, and I've just seen what you've been doing with success, so congratulations on that. But it's also creating hyper-local content as well. And I know that we have a lot of agents that are partnering with Studio USA for creating, even like today, we're here to support Dustin and Leslie and really helping them showcase what it is that they do and the value that they bring to this community. So leverage your partners in that way. Because I'm going to share another quick little success story of Studio USA, really how this was born. Rick, you can chime in. Studio USA, as we mentioned, started as a real estate photography company. During one of the photo shoots, Rick decided to get out his camera and shoot some B-roll. You know what B-roll is? It's just sort of the behind-the-scenes type stuff. Well, then he shared that on social media, and it just blew up for that agent. And as much as the house looked great on the photos, but the action that the agent got was just amplified by that. And they said to us, it was just like, hey, not only did we sell the house, but I got another client. Like this generated more business because my visibility went up significantly. So I think you're going to see more and more of those things. And we see agents now that are inviting us into every aspect of that transaction. It starts with the listing conversation, that listing appointment, the photos, the inspections. If you can capture all those things, right now that's about publicly demonstrating your value. And you can see how, if you're doing stuff like that, you have to spend a lot of time justifying your 3% and why you're asking them to sign a buyer's or seller's agreement. Probably not. They're seeing why you do that. They're actually seeing you interacting in that transaction, and it's not done publicly. So the result of these efforts, clients just don't see you as professionals. They see you as trusted leaders who bring value beyond the transaction. So I'm going to conclude with this idea. As we look at 2025, it's clear that thriving in this market is all about connection. connection to your clients, your community, and your trusted partners. The top agents that we sit down with and that we hear their stories, they're really doing three things very well. And it's so simple. They're adapting to the market by becoming creative problem solvers and trusted advisors. They're strengthening vendor partnerships through appreciation, collaboration, and mutual investment that leads to powerful referrals. And then three, their visibility and influence through authentic and consistent video and social media content. So here's my encouragement to you. Don't just navigate the challenges of this market. Own them. Take them. Look at every shift as an opportunity to innovate and deepen relationships and elevate your business. The obstacle is the way. Build your success on connection and collaboration because that's where the real growth happens. 2025 is yours to take. Together, let's make it a landmark year for connection, for deepening relationships, for success, and let's thrive in 2025, y'all. Come on.
All right. Oop, I hit the button. Good job, Lance. Thank you, Lance, so much. Listen, we're gonna keep this rolling because so I need to give a little disclaimer. All my high geeks in the room, let me see you. Let me see you. Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna go over time. Because what's gonna happen is we're gonna hit noon and your right leg is gonna go. I know, trust me, I have the same problem. Okay? So, Mike Dennis, I'm looking at you especially. So everybody, we're gonna be good because we wanna make sure we deliver this content, right? You came here today, took time out because we wanna make sure we hit it, right? You at least already got one nugget from Lance already, right? And we're not even done. So, set up next, our next guy, Mr. Jason Rasmusson, Supreme Lending. The reason why I asked Jason to come and talk to us, you guys don't know this, he doesn't like to brag very much because, you know, his wife keeps him as humble as possible. But since Erica's not here today, I will basically step in. Jason's got a background that goes back into basically Wall Street is what it comes down to, and understanding how the mortgage market moves even on the primary market to begin with. And so when you have that knowledge, you see how the market itself moves. That's actually what Jason's kind of secret sauce is. So he's not just a lender, that's kind of just his little day job at this point. But this guy, if I want to know how the economy and the markets are moving in general, Jason's the guy I call. Okay? So that's why I want him to come and give you kind of that, what's that background that sits behind it all, because it's a way bigger conversation that we have to understand going into 2025. This is a much bigger conversation than rates, let's just put it that way, okay? So, anyhow, give it up for Jason Rasmusson.
So, hey guys, first of all, I owe Dustin money for that. So I paid him to say all those nice things. That's not something he just did on his own. I promise you. Oh, thanks for clicking. All right, guys, hey, my name is Jason. I'm excited to be here. I think I'm excited for you guys to be here because it means that you're putting effort into your business. And I can tell you right now, there's not everybody out there who's doing that. That's what's going to separate us going forward in the future. So that's what I'm excited about for you guys. Second thing is, I want to tell you up front, as soon as Dustin asked me to do this, my only criteria was, please don't make me follow Leslie because that's not possible. So I'm sticking around just to hear you speak, Leslie, and I think you're going to kill it. I'm really excited. So
That's why none of us are following Leslie.
oh, for sure, absolutely. I agree 100%. All right, so in our time today, guys, what I want to do, and by the way, we know so many of you in this room. It's great for you guys to be here. Part of what we do is educate people. And every single month we go to a number of different offices, we teach a little bit of a market update, where we give you the information to be successful. One of the things that I thought was fantastic in Lance's speech is that every top agent is looking for a way to be more successful in 25 and they have a specific plan. So basically they're pouring education into their business. And I think that's something that's really important. I think for those of us that are going to survive the next year, doing that is going to be the number one thing. Putting a little bit of education into your business. So let's get started. I've got 15 minutes, guys, I promise. Don't kill me. We're going to get out of here as soon as possible. Actually, Dustin said shave 2 more off because we're running a little late. So maybe we've got 13 minutes. All right, so what I want to start with is some real basic, just economic stuff. So the first thing is, our entire world for the last 2.5 years has been so influenced by what the Federal Reserve is doing, right? Like they literally, you guys realize they came after our business on purpose. We are one of the reasons inflation was so high because we killed it throughout COVID. So one of the ways that they do that in order to get inflation down is they raise interest rates. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But this is what this inflation model looks like. And ultimately the Fed has two main jobs. Their first one is to keep inflation under control, price stability. Their second one is unemployment, which we're going to talk about. So this is number one. Well, if you look at it, guys, we just went through one of the greatest periods, and I say great is in a bad way, periods of inflation in our lifetime. We haven't seen inflation like this since the 70s and 80s. So they had to get this under control because if they didn't, we were going to be in a lot of trouble. So the good news is, this gives you a little bit of an idea where inflation's at. Look how low we are here. We only have the September numbers, but we're down to 2.4%. What's the Fed's goal? What are they trying to keep us at? Anybody know? 2, that's right. And we've been telling y'all for about a year, if they got a 2 something, they would kind of chill out, which is good. And they would start to help us a little bit, but they still got to get to 2. And if you go back to where we started in 2020, we were way under 2. 1.5, 1.3, somewhere in that ballpark. So they're trying to get us back to that level. Good news is, making huge progress, and they did that by raising interest rates. Now, here's the next piece of it though. So they have what's called a dual mandate. So they have to worry about inflation and unemployment. And the thing is, the unemployment side has been under control for years. In fact, we've been running at what we call full employment for a very long time. Full employment is basically everybody who wants a job can get a job, is what that boils down to, or has a job at that point. Now, the problem with this is, first of all, real quick, unemployment's super cheap, 4.1 or 4.1%, which is phenomenal. That's below what they consider to be full employment, which is around 4.5 to 5%. But here's the thing that's kind of interesting. This number was running low to mid 3s a year ago. So it's crept up. The Federal Reserve said all along, we're not going to stop raising interest rates until inflation comes down and or if unemployment goes up too high. So they were very, very worried about this. Now what they initially said was, we want to make sure unemployment does not get over 5%. Well, 3 months ago, guys, we popped up over 4. And when we popped up over 4, they got scared. So that's the reason we got a 50 basis point rate decrease, right? So we went down from 4, we went all the way up to 4.3, now we're back down to 4.1. So here's the thing that's interesting as we look at 25 and what's coming up. So the thought was at 4.3, we might keep going up. In reality, we've already come down the last 2 months. We think it's going to be even lower this next month, which means that maybe they didn't need to do 50 basis points, right? Because inflation's in check and unemployment's in check as well, or at least they think it is. So these are the two things driving our world right now. Why does this matter because of real estate people? Well, it matters because of this. Because ultimately everybody here gets paid to sell a home or to help somebody buy a home, right? And what we're seeing in the mortgage market is that it's completely frozen. Anybody experienced that? Anybody got a plethora of buyers they'd like to give some of the rest of us? It's been slow, right? And the stories we hear from you guys, here's how you know it's slow. When someone's out there, looking at their a neighborhood of homes, and they have 17 homes for sale in the neighborhood, and there's one showing on any given weekend, that means we have a problem, right? So this problem is being created by the Fed with their rising interest rates and the affordability that we've got. And what we're seeing is mortgage market has really come down just even in the last few weeks. What happened a week ago that might have driven that number down? Yeah, those of you who have been unfortunate enough to be in our classes for the last couple of years know that we've been talking about this election cycle really slows things down going into it. And so one of the things that happens on the other side of it, and this is where we start to get a little bit positive about this, is we also have to rebound and go back up. So we have a big slowdown here in the last 5 weeks. I think you're going to see this next data point that comes out for this week is also a little bit lower. But that's okay, because we're about to turn the corner a little bit. All right, let's start talking about the positive stuff. So one of the things that I want to do, everybody's got negative opinions about what's been going on, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The last 2.5 years haven't been any fun, right? But we really do believe we can thrive in 25 because the market's picking back up and because things are going to turn back around. And there's what we call green shoots popping up everywhere. I'm going to show you that here in a moment. One of them is, this is the purchase application volume going all the way back to 2000. That's a long time. Most of y'all weren't in the business in 2000. I'm old. I started in 1995. So I've been around a long time, and we've never seen a purchase market this low. Why is that important? Does anything ever go straight down or straight up? No. And it has to rebound, which means that we know we're probably somewhere at the bottom here because we can't get any buyers to come in the market and even make application. There's still, let me give you guys a great number here. There are 2+ million new households formed every single year in the United States. Anybody ever heard that before? 2+ million households formed, which, by the way, household formation could be kids getting out of college and needing to get into the workforce and do their own thing. It could be people splitting up, divorces, unfortunately. But the bottom line is household formation is part of what drives real estate. Well, there's been 2 million a year, and we've been slow for almost 3 years. So how much pent-up demand do we have? Huge. We have this monster pent-up demand. Think about a rubber band that's been stretched, and we've been waiting for the catalyst to move that in the right direction, and we're about to get it because, and I want you guys to pay attention to this bottom section right here. In the recent bank rate study, 40% of people said they were waiting until after the election. How many of you guys have heard from your clients, well, I'll do something after the election? Every single phone call we got the last 60 days, I'm going to wait till after the election because when my guy or my gal wins, the world's going to be amazing. That's what we heard, right? Now, nothing political, but let's be honest. 52% of the people in this room, at least, are real excited with the outcome of this election, right? Which means 52% of the buying public is real excited. And I'll go even a step further and say, for everybody who wanted Trump to win, they're very convinced the world's going to get a lot better. That's 52% opportunity for us. That's part of the pent-up demand conversation. All of those people have been sitting on the sidelines. Now they're excited and ready to go, and we're starting to see that come out a little bit. All right, let's give you guys some market data and a couple of forecasts here real quick in our time. So the first one is we always want to talk a little bit about home sales. Here's another kind of green shoot that we're going to show you all. So this is annualized home sales numbers based on just existing homes, not new construction, okay? And you can see that the last data point we have, we were down to 3.8 million annualized units. Why is that number significant? Anybody know? All right, 4 million is the bounce off point for every time in history that we've dipped down this way. 4 million is the point where we dip in and then we go back up. And so we knew, once we got down to about this $4 million number, that we were probably at the bottom. And the point is we are. We are at the bottom, which means that 25 has to improve if we see a catalyst for that improvement, which we think we just got out of the election being over. Just that alone means that we're going to see a little bit of a catalyst. But there's even more coming up, so all positive stuff. All right, let's look at it now. If you look at it, this is actual on a month-over-month basis. You can see that home sales were down about 3.5% even from last year. Last year in the fourth quarter, most people said this is the worst quarter I've ever had. And we come down even off of that a little bit. So again, all we're doing is building up pent-up demand. So we have an election that slowed demand. We have rates that slowed demand. We have household formation that's causing demand. And we're at the bottom of our cycle, which means that we're headed back in the right direction. Let's give you some real data. So this is, anytime you see Fort Worth Metro, this is Tarrant County and all the counties that touch Tarrant County. So this is a big swath of place. If you look at it, our homes sold just this last month, ending October, up 11%. Anybody feel like it got a little bit busier in October? Maybe it got a little bit busier in September, actually. Because what happened in September? Rates went down, right? We actually locked people at 599 in September. We had a rush of contracts that came in because of that. So this is the Fort Worth side. Let's look at the Dallas County side. So again, this is the Dallas metro area, even greater, 14.6%. You know, one thing that we've been preaching to people for a while, and I'm glad to see there's so many Callaway and South Lake people in here because you guys are on the Tarrant County side, right? But the reality is only a third of the business done in the Metroplex is on the Tarrant County side. How many of you guys go get Dallas business too? That should be everybody, guys. You're missing 2/3 of the market. Some of the fastest growing areas in our Metroplex are on the north side of Dallas. So Frisco and McKinney, Allen, places you've already heard of. But did you know Sherman, by percentage, is one of the fastest growing MSAs in Texas? Anybody want to go market in Sherman? I had an amazing dinner there not too long ago. We were coming back from Arkansas, seeing one of our kiddos, and there's an amazing bar. I don't know the name of it, but it's in like a 150-year-old building. If you go to Sherman, go check it out. It was absolutely worth it. But my point is, we're moving in the right direction on the Dallas side even faster than we are on the Tarrant County side. All right, let's talk pending home sales for a minute. So this data is pending home sales just based on September. So what you're seeing is all regions are moved up quite a bit in September. Pending home sales in September moved up because rates went down, right? We're going to draw a line to this here in a minute, I promise. So now for October, we think the estimate is up another 5%. Technically, the answer for September was we were up over 7.5. So if we get another 5%, we could be up 12% in pending home sales. That's a meaningful adjustment, right? That means you should start to see more traffic out there in your listings. Here's the deal though, guys. In our market, we're actually probably outperforming that because we just said October, up only about 4.9% for the nation. But what we're seeing on the Fort Worth side is up over 8% this last month. So we reacted a little bit stronger than the rest of the market. And when you get into the Dallas side, 16%. 16%. So 2/3 of our market is moving at twice the clip as the other third. A really good reason to get over Dallas, right? Do a little bit of marketing over there. All right, let's talk about forecasts. I want to get at the end of each section, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a forecast of what's coming next year. This is the official projected information out of all the people we think know what they're talking about. Fannie Mae, Mortgage Banker Association, NAR, everyone. And when you look at it, this includes new construction, by the way, so I find the numbers a little bit inflated. But we feel like we're going from 4.6 to 5.2. That's a 13% increase by itself. Guys, by the way, this number was almost 20% last month when they ran the projections. The number came down a little bit because of what they think is going to happen to interest rates next year. We're going to get into that here in a few moments. I'm going to tell you it's actually fairly positive, but maybe not as positive as they thought initially. Even with the higher interest rate forecast, we're still expecting a 13% improvement. So if you guys got 13% in your business, would you feel much better about it? I know I would. And here's the thing. Y'all aren't going to get 13%. You guys are going to get 20, 25%. Because that 13% is going to be all done by the top. Dustin, 10% maybe? 7%? The top 7% are going to get it. That's the new number. The new 80-20 is 93-73. That's not, or 93-7, sorry. It's not just good for beef. It's actually important for all too. So that means all you guys in here are going to see more than a 13% increase. That's a positive sign, right? That's really, we're pretty excited about that. Oh, by the way, that 13% is just the calculation from 4.6 to 5.2. Something else we should talk about, though, is they're not really confident that builders will keep going with the pace they are. Because if existing homes are a little bit more affordable at some point, builders won't be as necessary, right, in the new construction world, which means we might be getting a 15 or 16% bump in the existing sale side. All right, let's talk home prices for a minute. So, average home prices for the last month that we have on record, about 405. And the thing is, you see a little bit of seasonality there, but what's the overall trend look like? Okay. So that's kind of what we're seeing across the board. In fact, if you go to the next slide here real quick, we were up 3% according to NAR. NAR, there's a whole bunch of ways you can look at home prices and sales. NAR encompasses everything that goes on in the market, whereas some others cut out things like jumbo or people that pay cash. This was a little bit more, I would say, holistic look at what the market looks like. And so you can see we went up 3%. Now, let's stop you here for a minute. So we're talking about education, talking about ways that I think you can differentiate yourself next year. A big piece of it is how you educate clients. So how many of you have gotten this question lately? This is the exact question I got 2 weeks ago from a client. Is now a good time to buy a house? Anybody heard that today, even? Okay. The client I had 2 weeks ago called me and said, hey, I got a question for you. I want to know if now's a good time to buy a house. And I said, well, what does your realtor say? And he said, I don't want to know what my realtor has to say because they're here to sell me. Uh-oh. Well, that means that we're not here to give you good advice, we're here to sell them, right? So I said, look, here's my impression. I think it's a great time to buy. Let me share with you why. And one of his big concerns was, next year we know we're going to get lower interest rates. I went, okay, there's a pretty good chance of that. I'm kind of on board with that. So let me throw out some numbers to you. So he was looking at about a $500,000 home, and I asked him, I said, what do you think that home is going to appreciate in the next 1 to 2 years? Annually. He said, I don't know, at least 3 to 4%. Okay, I agree with that. Let's say it's 4%, just for fun and grants. So you have a $500,000 home, it's going to go 4% per year, which means that a year from now, that home is worth what? $520,000, right? $520,000. I said, how much are we gonna spend extra by taking today's higher interest rate? And then we did the calculation for him, it was less than $200 a month. So I tell you what, we're going to round that up. $200 a month, $2,400 for the year. So here's what you're doing. You're stepping over $20,000 to pick up $2,500. Does that make sense? I said, oh, by the way, what if rates don't go down? You going to wait another year? Because I've got clients sitting on the sidelines since 2019. 2019. Do you even remember 2019? I don't. So let's just say it happens one more year. 520 turns into, for simple math, that's 540-ish, but it's really like 541 with compounding, right? So now I've stepped over $40,000 to pick up a $5,000 check. Because you know what, when you put it that way, now's a good time to buy it. Right? That's the education component of it, and that's what we hope you guys can get out of some of this stuff. Okay, Let's keep trucking. So what's Fort Worth Metro look like? Well, you know what, guys? We're not going up at the same pace. We're only going up about 1% for this last year. So we're off of the market pace. Now, on the surface, you go, hey, that's not good. But let me tell you the reason why. Have any of y'all seen, now, yes, I know there's lots of price drops, but have you seen a material drop in prices in DFW? Some yes, some no. Pocket-wise, absolutely. Absolutely. As a whole, we're not. In fact, the number again, this is the most current data, up 1.5%, 1.1, 1.3%. But here's what's happening on the coast, guys. They came down. Some places 15, 20%. Think about Austin. Austin came down 15, 20%. All those places are shooting back up now because they gave the buyers a reason to come back to market. We didn't do that yet. So while we say, hey, we're lagging the rest of the world, we're probably going to lag for a couple of years on sales prices. And the reason is we tend to go flat for a period of time versus coming backwards. That, by the way, is not a scary proposition. That's what you tell your buyers from the West Coast is the reason they want to come buy in Texas. Because we're more steady than that. So on average, we'll give you 3 to 4% appreciation, but when the rest of the world comes back 10%, we're holding flat. Does that make sense? That's a positive thing, right? So we're seeing that on the Fort Worth side. What's Dallas look like? Similar story, up 1.3%. So we're still lagging a little bit, but we're in probably better shape than most places because that 1.3 is a true increase. We never went back. We didn't go down and go back up. All right, where do we feel like home prices are going? Well, let's talk about this for a minute. I'm going to tell you this is all the official forecast. And when you look at it, these are all the people who are supposed to know what they're talking about. Goldman Sachs is always the smartest guys in the room, so we put a lot of credence on those guys. HBES is a group of 200 economists and think tanks that kind of put together a number themselves. So that's a big group of people. And then you've got Mortgage Bankers Association and NAR, which is our people, right? And so what you're really looking at is somewhere between a 1.6 and a 4.4 number. I think in Texas you're going to see 3 to 4% next year. I'm pretty confident in that. I don't think you're going to see these numbers down here at the bottom because we don't have enough homes for all the people who are already here, right? Now, what Texas is the new construction capital of the country. Texas is also the new construction capital of the country for apartments because we don't have enough houses. So we're building apartments instead, right? So I think these numbers are a little bit light for what we're going to see in Texas. I think we'll get another 3 to 4%, even if the rest of the country comes backwards just a little bit. All right, let's talk inventory. Now, here's the thing about inventory, guys. This is the reason we put this in here and the reason we want to share it with you. This is the foundation for how strong our business is tomorrow. So think about it. If I've got more inventory, I've got more choice for my buyers, right? I've got prices that are not under pressure anymore. If I have a lot of inventory, I don't have prices going through the roof all the time. If I have inventory and I have buyers and I have homes to choose from, I have sellers that might want to sell. By the way, we have a lot of sellers at 3.5% interest rates that are desperate to sell right now. Does that sound weird? Desperate to sell. One of the clients we talked to the other day bought something like a 12 or 1,300 square foot house in 2021. Overpaid for it. They now have a second kid. Can you imagine the amount of space in 1,200 square feet with 2 kids? Right? That's crazy. So we've got that coming. Now, here's the thing. We've got the highest inventory levels since early or middle of 2020. That's good. It's still not as high as it was in 2019 yet, but we're moving in the right direction. Now, when you look at the overall market, officially each month, we're up about 14.5% for the month of October. But here's where things get even better for Dallas Fort Worth. So Fort Worth, up about 15%, kind of sitting on the average, a little bit of improvement. Dallas, 25%. So we're putting inventory on faster than the rest of the market. And the more inventory we put on, the better foundation we build, which is going to help us in 25 and 26. So we have opportunity coming. Those of you, in fact, it's funny, I probably had 4 conversations with people walking in the door a minute ago, and they say, hey, how's your business? Man, it's okay. I mean, we get an occasional phone call, and they go, hey, I got a bunch of listings going on. That's good, right? That's inventory. That's business for you guys. And we got the buyers to buy it. But at least we've got more listings coming on, so we're excited about that. All right, so let's talk about weeks of supply. This is another important little green shoot for us. So what is the old adage about a balanced market? What is a market balance? How many months? 6.5. 6.5. I like that very specific answer. Usually that's true. 6, 6.5, somewhere in that ballpark. What's the new 6 months? 4 to 6. 4 to 6 is kind of what they're thinking. 6 months is probably too long. So where are we sitting at? Well, on the Fort Worth side, we're sitting at 20 weeks. 5 months supply, right? And if you look over at the Dallas County side, they're doing the exact same thing, about a 20-month supply. 20-week supply. So what that means is I'm sitting on a balanced market for the most part right now. Balance is good for us, guys. We want a little bit more inventory to come on so the buyers can have a little bit more to choose from, but we want it to stay balanced. What happens if we go back to a straight selling market? It's not great, right? I know we all killed it, we made a ton of money in 20 through 22, but the bottom line is in that type of market where prices go up that high, number one, your buyers can't afford the home. Number two, if that happens again, the Fed's gonna raise rates. So we don't want that to happen, right? Now, most of us don't want the market to go down either. So I don't want it to be a buyer's market where everything is price-wise is a race to the bottom. So a balanced market is perfect for us, and that's what we're sitting on right this moment. So as we light the fire for 25, we're sitting in the right spot. All right, last couple things for you guys, and then we'll get off stage. So interest rates. Interest rates are obviously the big key to everything. And the thing is, we had a little bit of an experiment that we ran in September. We just didn't realize we were doing it. So interest rates in September went down to 5.99, right? What happened when interest rates went down? I think home sales went up over 7%. Now that's a great number, and we were super, super excited for it. We thought at that type of interest rate, we'd see 20 to 25%, and we didn't get that. So because we didn't get the 20 to 25, the reason behind that is because it's not just interest rates that drive this market, it's overall affordability, right? It's the price of the home, it's the price of the insurance. Anybody have an insurance issue with it? It's insane, right? So we're watching interest rates. We need this little help. This is our little jot down here for the month of September, and then we went straight back up. Straight back up. And what happened after the election? We went up again, right? So let me ask you this. How are you educating your buyers on this? How are you educating your clients on this? What are you telling them? Why did rates go up? All right, let me give you a little bit quickie 30-second version. So again, not political. 52% of people just voted for Donald Trump. They're extremely happy he's in here. And one of the reasons is because we think he's pro-business. And he is. He's very pro-business, right? Pro-business is good for you and I, by the way, because we live in a very heavily regulated world. So pro-business is awesome. It's also better for wealthier buyers because they're pro-business as well. So we have all positive things. That's why we wanted that outcome. On the other side of that, some of the things that we think he's going to use to get there might increase the deficit a little bit. It might increase the cost of goods a little bit. So, as an example, tax cuts are amazing, but if we get further tax cuts, we have to borrow money. If we borrow money, ultimately we have to pay more for it, right? Eventually the bank is going to say, hey, I don't want 5%, I want 6%. And the way they get that is by increasing bonds. So, what we're seeing in the market is a little bit of an overreaction. Here's what I'm going to tell you is a really positive. We way overreacted. Yeah, I get the concept behind what they're trying to say, but at the end of the day, the better business environment probably does bring rates down faster. And that's a good sign for the rest of us. Now, how fast? That's a really good question. I don't know if we're going to get quite where we want next year, but I'm going to show you one piece that may drive it. So let's talk about this one for a minute, and then we're almost finished up. So mortgage rates, everybody thinks the Federal Reserve controls mortgage rates, right? That's one of the number one misconceptions out there on the planet. The Federal Reserve is changing the overnight interest rate banks use to lend each other. That's it. It's as short term as it gets. It's from tonight till tomorrow morning. Now, because of that, it trickles into the other interest rates. But here's the thing about when the Fed moves. When they move down, we, in the mortgage world, get about 20% of what they move. So what if the Fed drops a point next year? We're coming down 0.2. We don't care about that, right? I mean, that's going to help. I'll take it, but it's not going to be the end-all be-all. This is way more important. So what really drives our interest rate market is the spread over the 10-year Treasury. So if you want to know where rates are going, watch the 10-year Treasury. Way, way more informational than what you get from anything else. And the spread above the 10-year Treasury has historically been 1.75%. So if the Treasury's at 4, we're charging 5.75. Now, Treasury's at what right now? 4.3 plus 1.75. Let's just say we'd be somewhere around 6%, 5.99. The problem is this spread exploded during COVID because of all the uncertainty in the marketplace and because of what was going on. And that number got up to 3.25. That's a big number, right? Now, it's starting to come back down. What we've seen in the last couple of months is that number is shrinking. It's been as low as about 240, and right now we're sitting at about 2.6. And for those of you who have already nodded off, why do we care about this? Because this is a dollar for dollar reduction in your interest rate. Dollar for dollar. If the spread comes down 10 bips, interest rates come down 10 bips. If it comes down 100 bips, interest rates come down 100 bips. This is what's going to drive our interest rate market down next year more than the Federal Reserve. So we'll take the 20 bips they'll give us, but we're going to be looking for this number to come back down. Now, last piece of this is it coming to 1.75? Probably not. I think it probably settles in around 2. And if you think about it, why would they get back all the money they've been charging? They got away with it for 3 years. Why would they give it all back? It's like McDonald's, they moved from a $1 value menu to a $5 menu. Now they're in trouble, so they're bringing it back to like 3, but not to 1. And that's kind of the same thing we think we're going to see on this. So this is what you guys want to watch. This is why our interest rates are going to come down, because one of the big factors in that spread is uncertainty. Uncertainty around elections. And we just finished one up. So now we have to wait and see what the policies are going to be for the new administration, but at least we took out a huge uncertainty. All right, guys, now, just to wrap this up, why is that super important? Well, because in another recent survey, 52% of people said they'd be willing to buy or sell a home once rates got down around 6%. So we think the catalyst, by the way, from an interest rate standpoint, is 5.5 to 5.99. Somewhere in that ballpark, that's when you get the public excited. Remember I said we were going to experiment in September, and we saw 5.99s, we were really excited. We just didn't stay there very long. So once we get those to come down to be a little bit more of a normal rate, we know that we've got a lot of people who are getting ready to come in, which is awesome for you guys. Again, we will see these rates come down. Now let's end on this. Where are they going to hit? So there's our forecast. This is the official numbers out of Fannie Mae, the MBA, and all. I'm going to tell you, I think they're probably a little bit light, but not by much. You know, we were really concerned when we saw rates go up in the last month that these numbers might turn into 6.5s and 6.7s. But this information is literally current right as the election is happening. And that data already baked in the fact that Trump is going to win. So what we're seeing is by the end of Q3 of next year, so when we get to roughly the point we're in right now, high 5s. In fact, you click into the 5s somewhere around the middle part of the year. I think if we're going to click into the 5s, it is somewhere in that second or third quarter. That's what I'm anticipating. I don't know that you'll see it necessarily in the first quarter, but I'm going to leave you with a little nugget. I think you will see much lower rates in the first quarter temporarily. What's happened the last 4 or 5 Januaries, guys? We come back from the holidays. Fire traffic really picks up. We get popped for a couple of weeks. And usually what we see, and in fact the last 3 years, what we've seen is rates have trickled down in January. We got down to like 6.1 this last January. We thought we might hit the 5.99, and then we moved back up. So I think what you guys are going to see, and what you need to be prepared for is, do we get a bounce in January? The reason that we probably get that bounce, aside from what I just said, is this election. So to tie it all together, guys, when the election cycle is over with, we have this nice bounce, a visible bounce every single time for the next 3 months, right? So what is that? That's, let's just say November's over with. Let's call it December, January, February. When's our slowest time of the year? January, February. So we usually get an election bounce in that period of year. We also get a little bit of a move down in interest rates in January, which means that y'all need to come out of the gate swinging when we get done with holidays, because we have opportunity coming in. And then the question is if we stay there or not. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. So, Dustin, we doing okay on time?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Does anybody have a quickie question, anything that they want? We can cut that down a little bit for those of you that see that presentation on a regular basis. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned a lot of the buyer thoughts are going to be based on policy, which we're not going to know really a lot until after inauguration.
Right.
So you're seeing basically a lot, if that's going to change kind of.
Yes, we think, so number one, we do think it's going to take a little while for this to take effect. So what's essentially going to happen is the new administration is going to start putting out a few talking points here in the next couple of months, and they're going to start talking about things they're going to do in the first 100 days. You guys are going to hear that conversation quite a bit, right? Once they start doing that, we're going to have a little bit more clarity on the policy side, and then we'll see exactly where we go. And I'll say this, the key to what Trump wants to do that everybody's worried about is tariffs, right? So you guys realize we pay tariffs. You and I pay tariffs. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, well, hey, he's going to put 60% on China. Well, nobody cares about China. I don't want to buy Chinese goods anyway, because they're trashy. I'm like, wait a minute. Are you holding an iPhone? Are you working on a Mac? Are you working on an IBM? Because they're all made in China, right? So 60%, well, a new iPhone now, I mean, just as one that has glass and makes phone calls is $1,100, right? So add 60% to that. That's what we're calling inflationary. That's the problem. Now, if we get targeted things like you did in the first administration, we didn't see a lot of inflation going on that. So the policy conversation over the next 3 months is going to be huge. And if you see sweeping tariffs, guys, you get ready for higher interest rates. If you see sweeping tariffs, because that will change the world. All right, great question. What else? One more. All right, easy. All right, Dustin, either they know everything or I put them to sleep.
Well, you nailed it. I mean, there's a lot of numbers, and there's not a lot of math people in this room, just saying.
That's
so.
right. Any of you that have questions afterwards, you email me, call me. Math, they just do big math. They go from $1 million to $1 million to $2 million.
That's
If y'all have questions, email or call. We love to help out. Thank you guys.
Okay, so I've had a couple of ahas, Jason, from your talk I want to share with you. For those of you, you've been in any class with me before, if anyone asks me a question about the market, what's my answer all the time? Thank you, my people. It depends. So no matter what, if someone says, well, what's next year going to look like? What's rates going to do? What's the market going to do? Is this a good time to buy a house? Is this a good time to sell my house? What is your answer every time? And why does it depend? Because we're talking about one house. The market does not affect one house. The market doesn't apply to one house. It always applies to one house. So the question is, it's never about a good market, it's always about a good buy and a good deal. So the question is, it depends. What deal are we putting together? So just to remind everybody real quick, like, hey, just remember, no matter what, your answer every single time should not be, the market's great. You know why you can't say the market is great? Because you are no longer trusted. You are exactly what the consumer is worried about. They're just going to call the lender and not ask you. Because if you say it's great all the time, they're going to stop asking you for advice. Do you hear me? So that's the whole thing. Get out of that boat. Don't answer questions that way. Well, it depends. Let's talk about the deal. What are you thinking? Well, we think we want to buy a new house. Awesome. Based on what you want to buy, what do you think you want to buy? Where do you want to buy at? What market you want to buy in? What neighborhood? Right? All of a sudden, there's a lot more questions. Now I'm actually just giving you advice. Okay? And then a little side note, little aha, we also have to be cautious. I'm going to talk about this more later, but we have to listen to the consumer right now. The consumer is telling us things that they want from us now, and we have to listen. So we have to also, I'm just going to say this generally, watch your memes. Just watch your memes with posting people. Just watch your memes, okay? Realtor memes are cute. I love them, but the problem is it's funny for us, but maybe the consumer doesn't think it's so great. So I'm just putting that out there. But those are my two main ahas that I took away from that, Jason. So thank you very much. Okay, so now we've got another part we're going to transition, and Heather, man, you guys, Independence Top Team, y'all come up, whatever y'all want to do there. Yeah, good job. So there we go, some walkout music. So we're going to go through a massive shift right now because of obviously NAR launch series and things like that. We're going to see a big shift in contract changes. And you've got a lot of contract changes coming your way, okay? If you didn't know, a lot is shifting up. And it's actually really healthy. Once they walk you through this, it's actually really good. But you're going to have to be smarter and better and be more aware. So they're going to walk you through all of this. Thank you guys for doing it, because Lord knows I certainly don't want to talk about this stuff anymore. Give it up, give it a hand.
Yeah, we know what you're all here. It's all contract changes. And hey, if you like the answer, it depends, you got two title attorneys. We're really good at saying it depends. Like that's our brilliant answer. We will try to give you all a little bit of concrete advice. I'm Matt Schultz, real estate title attorney, co-owner of Independence Title and the Schultz & Keller Law Firm. My partner here, Heather Autry, is escrow officer, attorney, and branch manager of the Colleyville location. And we're going to take y'all through the upcoming imminent contract changes, as well as a few special provisions addenda that we draft to kind of take your contract knowledge to the next level as well. Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. I know y'all are here, and so you're saying, hey, talk about mold remediation in the occupations code. I got it. All right, I'm going to start there. I know that's what we were saying. So we're going to spend probably half our time on, okay, we're not. So disclosure. I mean, it's, who's been around long enough, if you dare to raise your hand, the contract was 2 pages long. Pat Evans, I knew I could count on it, okay? All right? And you're gonna only have additions to this section, of course. So there's kind of 2 changes on this page I want to highlight. So one, if you've had mold remediation in the prior 5 years preceding a sale, that certificate of mold remediation has to be delivered to the buyer. Although, if you're calling us and you're like, hey, it's been 5.5 years, what do you think? Disclose. Tell them, right? Anything and everything that the buyer would want to know when they're looking to purchase, even if it's something that has been remedied, something like mold remediation, any water damage, those are those sort of like latent defects that you find out after the fact that lead to lawsuits. But now you have a statutory thing from the occupations code that you have to disclose that. There's kind of a laundry list in that paragraph 12 for required notices, whether it's your muds, PIDs, PUDs, drainage, whatever it may be. There are different statutory requirements for when and how to disclose. Many of them require disclosure either at the time of executing the contract or prior. If you don't do so, you're giving buyer the unrestricted right to terminate the contract all the way up until the closing date. So if something needs to be disclosed, be mindful of whether it's the mud, pit, PUD, or whatever it might be. We're always on call, me, Heather, Dustin, whoever you guys can call on, to make sure that you're disclosing the right things at the right time.
When y'all checked in, you should have gotten the T47 declaration, yes? Does anybody not have one? Anybody? Michelle, you want to finish this? So I want you to flip it over. I've got some prizes to give out. First hand up. What do you see that is different on the back? Yes? The date of birth. Good one, okay? Awesome. This is a book, it's called Let the Seller Beware. It's a very good book on how buyer can get out of the contract. What is the other difference that you see on the back? Yes, Michelle? No notary one. Yes.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. So we like it, right? All of you agents are so excited that you don't have to send your clients to the title company anymore to have it notarized, right? But the problem is you have to put your seller's full date of birth on it. Okay? If you don't put your seller's full date of birth on it, it's not legally a declaration, therefore you haven't met the requirement under the contract. So if your seller does not want to provide their full date of birth, then you're stuck with the affidavit. Okay? Don't ask the title company to black it out, because my answer is going to be no. Okay? But my other title company does that. I love that one. Well, they're doing it wrong. Okay? So it's not in the Texas. The statutes say that in order to be a declaration, it has to have their full date of birth. Remember, that's going to be provided to the buyer, and it's going to be provided to the lender. And God forbid you put it on the MLS, it's going to be provided to every public person that views that document. So as excited as you were about not having a notary, please, please, please explain to your seller that this is what's going to happen. Because once you put it on the MLS, and they see it, or someone says, oh, I didn't know you were 70 years old. They're going to be like, well, how did you know that? Well, it's because it's on public information, okay? The less noticeable thing in this paragraph is that we've changed the word shall to may. People are asking me, well it's not very meaty language. What if they don't order one? Well, that's why this sentence was added at the end. If buyer fails to obtain the survey, buyer may not terminate. And the reason why they changed this in the buyer section is because if it's a cash deal and the buyer doesn't want one, we have lots of confusion. Do we put NA in these boxes? Do we put 0? Do we just not fill it out? What do we do? So if you're a cash buyer and the seller doesn't have one, and you don't know necessarily whether you want one or not, you check the buyer box, you put 7 days, and then you discuss it with your buyer after closing whether they want one or whether they don't. Okay? Then this is a nice little disclosure. Broker fees are not set by law and are negotiable. Okay? If you'll notice, this is the disclosure from all the TXR forms. So much longer. Okay? Tried to do y'all a really big favor by just making one short, sweet little sentence. Okay?
That's efficient. All right. Paragraph 12, I think, is getting a lot of headlines. I think this may be the most impactful change that you guys are going to see in these new changes. So we sort of fleshed out paragraph 12A in a way where we're not only just accounting for seller-paid closing costs across the board. We're now differentiating between seller-paid closing costs that are going toward broker fees and for all other buyer's expenses, which are defined there in paragraph 12A2. So the reason I think this is going to be important is we've been talking about 2406, 2402, 2401, all these TAR forms from the lawsuit settlement. And I think we may enter a time where this paragraph 12 is how we start negotiating compensation. Because what a buyer can do is write an offer and ask for 3% in seller-paid closing costs that go toward broker's fees. Now, on your settlement statement, it's going to show that buyer's paying buyer's agent 3%. That's going to be a debit, and then they're going to get a 3% credit. So on paper, they're paying their agent and getting a credit for the exact amount. But the reason I think this is going to be efficient, it doesn't require any additional addenda. It's just if you want to make an offer, when you guys are talking to your buyers and they say, hey, we're in agreement for you to have the 3%, but we want to make sure we write offers in a manner where we're not on the hook for that, then every offer that you write can utilize that paragraph 12A1B to take care of your client's expectations, right? And this is where it depends, right? It doesn't have to be a full 3%. Maybe you only have 2.5%, or maybe you are getting 3%, but you're only asking for 1%. Are you going to try to get another? Can you still have broker-to-broker compensation? You can. You can have any and all different combinations, or you can have nothing, where buyer pays their agent, seller pays their agent, and there's no agreement regarding compensation between the brokers or the parties. So all of those are options. Any combination thereof are options as well. As an industry, I feel like because this is an easy and efficient way to handle compensation, we're going to tend to kind of go that way. It's less addenda, less paperwork, less explanation. And you do have a scenario where you can have seller-paid closing costs for broker fees and seller-paid closing costs for other buyers' expenses. Do know that there are certain, caps to that depending on your loan type, if it's homestead, if it's investment. I think you have the numbers on kind of what that looks like.
Conventional is 3, 6, or 9, depending on down payment. FHA 6, VA's 4, and USDA 6. I get a question a lot about, well, if I put the VAC in the contract and the listing agent has a 5A listing agreement, then what's going to happen? So as a listing agent, if you want to handle it that way, what you could do is execute the offer this way, with it just in the contract, and send your seller an amendment to amend the listing agreement to make it a 5B, okay? So you don't have to go back to the buyer and counter in 7 different forms, and if the buyer submits the offer this way, great. Send your client a DocuSign with an amendment to the listing and just do the listing agent compensation element.
I agree.
Okay?
Add
Or
the fees resistance.
just do a 5B from the get-go. Okay.
And not to get too far off track, but 5B is likely where we're headed. The 5A model of cooperative compensation is getting a lot of scrutiny nationwide. There's a lot of states, double-digit number of states that have already gone away from even allowing for it. And so we're going to end up in another huge class action lawsuit if we don't kind of get on board. So that's just our opinion, or my opinion, that 5B is likely going to be where we end up, and it's going to make it even more efficient to use that paragraph 12.
We're getting a new addendum. I'm so excited to mark This one's short though, it's only like 2 sentences. I'll show it to you in a minute. But it is for 1031 exchanges. This is awesome, guys, because I've gone to the closing table where the seller's like, well, I had no idea the buyer was doing a 1031, and the 1031 company asked them to sign something. And then the seller's like, well, why should I sign this? What implication does this have to me? So by disclosing it at the very beginning, we're going to eliminate those questions.
All right, a little soapbox here for this one. This disclosure y'all have in the contract is great. I don't know why we have it, because it has no legal effect. It only provides confusion. So they fleshed it out a little bit more, where it says pursuant to a previous separate agreement, right? So you have to have something previously signed. Listing broker has agreed to pay other broker X% of the sales price. The reason this part is so frustrating from a title perspective is, one, y'all as brokers, as agents, you're not party to the contract. So there's nothing that can be executed regarding y'all's agreement between one another at all. Furthermore, there's no signatures on this page either. So your buyer and seller can't bind you to anything, nor are they even attempting to in this case. The reason this is a source of frustration is whether this is blank, or says 3%, or says anything in between, it has no legal effect. We still have to see that 2402, 2406, whatever it might be. Or if it does say 3%, and there was no 2402 sign, there is no 2406 sign, this is gonna have no legal standing, but it may just give a buyer's agent false hope that they can rely on this disclosure to get their compensation. I will tell you all, in one of our offices in the last 30 days, we had a buyer's agent that relied on this disclosure to get their 3%. And I will tell you, the very real outcome is that they ended up foregoing all 3% of their commission. Because they told their client, hey, 3% is being paid for by the listing broker. They were wrong, we got to the 11th hour, we've been asking for the previous separate agreement that was referenced here. We didn't have one, they didn't have one. Listing agent seller knew the leverage they had, they utilized it, they saved the seller 3%, and that agent worked for free. So learn from them, don't learn the hard way, right? Other than that, I don't have any opinions about this. Third-party financing. This is an awesome change, y'all. I'm grateful for this because I do think it's going to lead to less contract terminations. Because we're in the business of closing deals, right? We're not in the business of terminating contracts, and this was sort of a sore spot for terminating. So a couple of years ago, I keep saying that, it might be like 5 years ago now, property approval was sort of overhauled where we had to, in order to terminate due to lenders' underwriting guidelines pertaining to the property itself, so appraisal, insurability, lender-required repairs, if a buyer were to terminate under property approval, they had to give notice within 3 days of closing and provide a letter from their lender setting forth the reason that they're not approving the loan, right? That did not go along with credit approval / buyer approval. A buyer had, 21 days to obtain credit approval, usually what we see in that blank. And we get to day 21 and the buyer would terminate, and the seller's like, dude, we saw their proof of funds, they're well qualified, we want to see some proof from the lender. There was no proof required. And I'll tell you, I did see quite a few times where a seller and a listing agent would say, hey, it also says on page 1 of this addendum that a buyer must make reasonable efforts to obtain the financing that they're seeking. And we talked to the lender, the buyer didn't return phone calls, they didn't send a single tax return, they didn't send a W-2, they didn't send anything. So we dispute their termination, they did not make a reasonable effort, and so we want their earnest money, and we would end up in that sort of a situation. So fortunately, TREC has seen that there's a lot of contention with this, and they now have a requirement that if you are to terminate within the number of days listed in paragraph 2A, you have to deliver written notice in writing and a letter from the lender stating the reason that the buyer did not qualify for the loan. Okay? So that'll hold buyer's feet to the fire, or hold lender's feet to the fire to give an honest assessment of the buyer's creditworthiness. And I think it will ultimately lead to less terminations due to inability to obtain credit approval. Back up addendum. Man, they did this one long. That's really what happened. That looks excessive, and I promise it's not as much of an overhaul as y'all might think. So the main thing that they changed, and this is something that I know Dustin and I have been promoting for a decade or so, that when you go into backup position as a buyer, you have the ability from a leverage perspective to have a small amount of earnest money and a small amount of option money. Like, $100 earnest, $10 option. And then when you move into first position, you can then deliver additional earnest and additional option. Well, you can't accomplish that using the base contract itself. Paragraph 5 won't allow you to do that. Because if you put in additional earnest money or additional option money, it runs from the effective date of the contract. So if you say within 5 days, well, 5 days from now you may still be in backup position. They have finally allowed for us to have additional earnest and additional option due within X number of days after the amended effective date. So this is a really useful change, and I think something that is kind of a win-win for both sides. A buyer doesn't want to put up, $5,000 earnest and $100 option, never moving into first position. And I don't see a lot of sellers that are trying to get rich off of backup buyers' option fees, right? So this is a really useful thing. You do have to deliver that earnest and that option within 3 calendar days of executing the contract, except that the third day is a Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday. Your timeline for delivery goes to the next day that's not a Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday, right? So that's your regular earnest and option delivery timeline. Other than that, the buyer has no obligations in the contract until they move into first position. And if you deliver your option fee on time, the buyer has the unrestricted right to terminate the contract the entire time they're in backup position and X number of days after the amended effective date. So if in paragraph 5 you have 7 days as your option period, Say you're in backup position for 20 days, and on day 20, you get notified that you're in first position. You would have that entire 20-day period to terminate, and from that day 20, 7 more days. So you would end up with a 27-day unrestricted right to terminate the contract. But that's a moving target, because you do not know as a buyer when you're going to be notified that you're in first position. That make sense?
And then here is our 1031 exchange addendum. So it just tells us in paragraph A if the seller or the buyer is performing the 1031, and in paragraph B that the parties will reasonably cooperate to sign documents provided there is no delay and no additional expense. So this might be the most straightforward document that we have. So next we want to talk just a few about 4 examples of some things that Matt, Dustin, and I have written to help y'all. The thing is that we can't write these things for you if you don't know the contract and what it says in the first place. Okay, so just understanding the contract is going to put you in the top 20% of agents. Guys, there are people that fill these out every day that have never read the document. I promise you there are, because I talk to them all the time. Okay? So start by reading the document. Read it aloud. Read it once a week. Make flashcards. If you, just about the paragraphs, if you ask me where prorations are, it's in paragraph 13. If you ask me where a default is, it's in paragraph 15. You guys should know this stuff. Because if your client asks you a question, you don't want to be fumbling through the contract trying to figure out where that provision is. Once you know the contract, then you can reach out to us for additional things that aren't there that will help you and your clients, okay? And so we're going to go over 4 of those examples.
All right, this is a pretty straightforward one, and I think this is a win-win-win across the board for a title company, for agents, for parties. When you are extending your option period, you're required to give additional consideration. Okay? Even if it's the seller's fault you need to extend, where they turned off the utility so buyer couldn't do a full inspection, and they're like, oh hey, we'll give you an extra 3 days. It is the buyer that is getting the unrestricted right to terminate, so they have to give something in return. Your track amendment, when you extend the option period, says buyer has delivered to seller additional consideration. How many of y'all deliver it before you execute that amendment? A couple of y'all maybe, yeah? Nerds? Most people don't. Most people don't. And so what we've done, one, it's kind of crazy to have to deliver the $10 check across town or find out somebody's Venmo or PayPal or whatever it is, because this doesn't go to the title company like your base option fee does. So what we did is we put together something where we pulled the additional option fee out of the existing earnest money. It says seller grants buyer the unrestricted right to terminate the contract on or before this extended date, and that if buyer terminates during this extended option period, buyer's earnest money is refunded to buyer less whatever amount, but usually $10, that is the minimum amount, less $10, which will be delivered to seller as the additional consideration. So as soon as you execute this, you've already satisfied, giving the $10 over, but it doesn't require any actual exchange of money. It just, you run this through DocuSign, .loop, and you're done. And the best way to get these is just to call, text, email, whatever it is. Usually, if it's me and Dustin, just text us both together. We have these on our phone. Microsoft Word, we just plug in your specific information and send it to you so you have that paper trail. As Texas title attorneys, we're unable to provide any of these addenda as like a template form. You have your promulgated forms through Trek, we're unable to provide that. And so if you want to have the protection of asking a title attorney for something, you have to ask for it for a specific transaction. When we send it to you, that paper trail is what protects you.
The next one is one of my favorites. How many of y'all have ever had a deal not close on time? All the time, right? And everybody has this misconception that because we don't close on time that the contract is terminated, or that it ends, or that it's not true, guys. Absolutely not true. If one party's in breach, 100%. But if I'm representing the seller and the buyer comes to me and they want 3 extra days because their lender needs time, and how am I going to try and sell that to my seller, right? They've got movers, they've maybe got another transaction, they've got all these excuses, okay? So why don't we try to get a little extra earnest money and make it automatically terminate if they don't close on the new date. So you wanted a 3-day extension, I'll give you a 3-day extension, I want 2,500 or whatever, this was a very large deal, I remember this.
Y'all remember
50,000.
that a couple years ago when sellers had all that leverage?
All the leverage, 50,000, okay? And once we get it, if the buyer fails to deliver it, also, if this is signed and they don't deliver it, automatic termination. So you go right on the back of the market. If they do deliver it, and then they don't close on the new date, number 5, automatic termination. You can go back on the market. So now we're not preparing our seller for yet another extension. I know we don't want to terminate contracts, that's not the idea. But if we're asking for additional earnest money, it's going to hold their feet to the fire, and they're not really going to put up that earnest money unless they believe that they really have a chance of closing. So if you've got a situation where you need an extension or someone's asking you for an extension, don't just sign the amendment. Because you don't know if there's going to be another one or another one after that. Okay?
All right, when we're working with contingent buyers, which is rather often, honestly, most people can't purchase without selling their existing home. It can be difficult from a seller's perspective to go under contract with a contingent buyer because they may have 45 days to sell their existing home, and you could be at day 40 and they're not even under contract. So they're not going to sell their home. But there's nothing you can do as the seller. You have to wait until that 45 days comes and goes, and at that point the contract will automatically terminate. So what we put together is sort of a layered contingency addendum that has 2 earlier contingencies. Not only do we have the regular contingency in the addendum for sale of the property by buyer, that the buyer must sell their existing home by a certain date, we also say that they have to list their property on MLS with professional photography at a specific sales price or less within this date, let's say 3 days from now. And that they need to go under contract to sell that home with a closing date no later than the closing date in our base contract within 14 days. And so if we don't hit the 45-day timeline of them closing on it, or if we don't hit the 14-day timeline of them going under contract, or the 3-day timeline of them going on MLS, we're giving seller the right to terminate. Seller has the ability to say, we're going to go ahead and walk away. You have not upheld your end of the bargain, and so seller can terminate. Or they may choose to continue on, but they at least have the leverage if they have a backup buyer that comes into play, or they have somebody else they're wanting to entertain, the seller can get out. The practical implications of this are just as important in that you're able to tell, the buyer's agent's able to tell their buyer, hey, we have to get this property listed on MLS by this Friday, contractually, or you're gonna be out of contract, right? You're gonna be in default. We did get a couple offers over the weekend. They weren't exactly what you wanted. If we don't accept a contract, we're gonna default in this, and the seller's gonna have the ability to get out. You're gonna make it much more likely that the buyer actually satisfies their contingency. Worst case scenario, you get to get out either on day 3 or on day 14. You're not waiting a full 45 days for that to come and go. Does that make sense?
And another one is for FHA and VA. You'll know it's really hard, virtually legally impossible, to require a buyer to pay more than the appraised value on FHA and VA. You'll call us and you ask us for, I need a guarantee, I can't use the appraisal waiver. And we'll tell you, the parties can agree, but that doesn't mean that if you wound up in court, that a judge would enforce it. This is enforceable, okay? So what we're doing here is reducing the seller BAC paid for the difference in the appraised value, and the buyer can pay that instead. So they're not paying more for the property, they're just taking over some of the expenses that the seller was originally going to pay. Okay, so they're still paying what the appraised value, the difference in that value, it's just we're calling it commission instead of sales price. Okay, so this is a great way to do that for those listing agents that are savvy and know that you can't guarantee. This works, legally enforceable. This one just threw it.
This is a fun one. No, I like this. So yeah, we're going to talk about the HOA addendum briefly. How many of you all have ever really looked at paragraph A4 of your HOA addendum? Okay? This is kind of it used to be something that was used in sort of a sneaky way. I think it's a little bit more out in the open now, and I would encourage you guys to use it in this way. When you have an HOA and paragraph A1 is checked, which is what we see more often than not, right? When that buyer receives their subdivision information, their covenants, conditions, restrictions, and the resale certificate, they can terminate within 3 days of receipt of those docs for any reason. It is completely unrestricted right to terminate. It's just as powerful as your option period. How many of y'all have had somebody terminate and it's not because of the HOA, it's just because they want it out, right? It's treated like an extended option period oftentimes. Well, there's a way to kind of back into removing that right of termination. So as a listing agent, first and foremost, if you have the leverage, because it depends, if you have the leverage to do so, you can request that buyers and buyer's agents make an offer and check A4, which says that buyer does not require delivery of subdivision information. That doesn't mean they're not going to get it. If you go down into paragraph D of this same addendum, it says that if the buyer does not require it and the title company requires it, well, we require it, so that should not be an if. We are required to require it. We get it because we're insuring it, and that if we require it, then it'll be paid at buyer or seller's expense. What paragraph D does not include is a right of termination. So when you check A4, you're effectively invoking paragraph D of the HOA addendum, which says that we're going to get this documentation, and it's either buyer or seller that's going to pay for it, but you're removing buyer's right to terminate after receipt of those HOA docs. So I would be very forward with this, is hey, oftentimes buyers use this as kind of a get out of jail free card. We want to eliminate that, so we would like you to check A4. Something you can do from a buyer's agent's perspective is, because you know that's what a seller would want, if you're in a multiple offer situation especially, proactively check A4. And then let the listing agent know the impact of you doing so. Hey, you guys are going to receive multiple offers. Many of them are going to check A1. We're checking A4 because we want to give seller assurance that we're not going to use the HOA addendum, to get out of jail at the end. Does that make sense? Say that again. Check with your buyers first, of course. I mean, there are situations where, if a buyer truly wants to look at the HOA to see if they can, build a mother-in-law suite, or they have some, grand plans for the property, they want to make sure that they do have a right to terminate, they want to raise chickens on the property, you do want to make sure you have the ability to back out. So of course, if your buyer has specific things they're wanting to look at in the HOA, may not be the option for you, but in a lot of cases, this is a really useful way to get rid of a right of termination. Well guys, as always, please do reach out to us, whether you have to deal closing an independent title or not. This is something that we've done for a decade plus of helping you guys with this language, so we want to empower you all to reach out. You'll know how to get a hold of Heather if you work with her. Anybody else, y'all reach out to me and Dustin. Text us both together. I guarantee you he's replying to a lot of people within the last hour while he's kind of on the run and I'm up here, and we work off of each other that way. But thank you for the time. Dustin, thank you for the opportunity.
When you text, just make sure it's Dustin Keller and Matt Schultz. Because I end up on those texts a lot, and I'm like, oh Lord, you don't want me to answer that question. So that's great. Any questions? Thank you guys for being so legal. Yeah, that was the most entertaining contract update ever, right? So, thanks guys. Yeah, so as you can see, this is the reason why we needed to cover this if we're going to do really well next year, because, that's a lot changing in 1 year, right? For those who've been around for a while, that's a lot coming at us in one shot. Usually we get like a paragraph change here or there, that's about it. So that's a lot coming at your way. You've got to know your contracts really, really well moving into this next market. Hey, so I'm going to keep jamming if you need to excuse yourself, take a minute, whatever, do your thing. I'm going to keep rolling. Is that okay? Yes. Everybody good with that? Okay, so for everybody in the room, hi, that's me. There's a few people I guess I don't know. There's some people in this room I don't know. Hi, my name's Dustin. I had the privilege of running Keller Williams South Lake for 9.5 years and moved to Miami a year and a half ago. So I am operating in Miami. I'm actually licensed in Florida, Texas, and Tennessee, by the way. And I operate commercial real estate. Our group is Portfolio Commercial. That's what the t-shirt's about. And so we purposely partner with residential agents to do commercial real estate. I tell everybody, why do you do that? Why do you want to partner with a commercial person? If you want to do it yourself, cool, call me. I'll talk you through anything. Throw some things out there to you, give you some advice. But most cases, commercial contracts, 18 to 24 months on purchases. On the timeline, the average close rate is about 35%. When you're negotiating a deal, so obviously it's like the exact inverted opposites of residential. Like you're closing 75% of your deals in residential, we're closing 30% in commercial. So it's just a different kind of dynamic animal. And so if we can be a resource to you, talk to Austin Fletcher over there, Matt, Barry, we got the crew here today. So we kind of work everything together. So there you go, there's my plug and pitch, but that's me. Because I was like, oh, Matt Matt did that. I was like, oh, there's a thing with my face on it. Great. I mean, look at the size of that head. I mean, my goodness. Look at a bobblehead doll. Jeez. Sorry. Yeah. Anybody else that's like, anybody else with me, you always struggle with the social media and the stuff because you're like, that's what I look like. Jeez. When did I get old? So anyway, whatever. Sorry, squirrel. Take it back. So the main things I want to talk to you guys about today, there's some key things I want to focus on. And I want to give you a little snippet of NAR settlement. So I'm going to talk to you about, this is Dustin's opinions. And here's what's really cool. I'm no longer the brokerage guy. I'm not representing a broker. I'm not the licensed supervisor of anything. So guess what? I can say whatever I want now. Okay? I'm wheels off, baby. Okay? So anyhow, so I get to kind of talk to you a little more directly. So, but just to kind of set the stage a little bit, for those of you over the age of 40, raise your hand real quick. Okay, everybody under the age of 40, raise your hand real quick. I'm not picking on you, don't feel bad. Okay, cool. Robert, really right now? Hands low, Robert. Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah, I know. But what I want to ask you is, for those of you over the age of 40, do you remember when sunblock began? Right? So for those of you, if you're under 40, there was a time where there was no such thing as sunblock. At best, we used suntan oil. Remember suntan oil? What was the, remember the brand? It was the little girl with the was hanging out the Coppertone, right? Yeah, and then for all the guys, remember when Hawaiian Tropics came out? Yeah, we were all young boys, we couldn't handle that. That was the commercials, it was all too much for us. It was highly inappropriate. My mother got very mad if a Hawaiian Tropics commercial came on television, okay? So, but there was a time where it existed before that. Because you know what happened in that moment? All of a sudden somebody went like, hey crap, when you lather yourself in oil, remember because we would go sit outside and what would happen, y'all? We'd come back in and what would we look like? Well, not everybody. Put it this way, anybody with this color on them, okay, right? We would be fried. Anthony, come on, back me up on this, right? Like, you know, Anthony's beautiful chocolate all the time. But this guy, no. I would walk in and just bake, right? And you walk in, you come in the house, and you're burned, and then you have fun for the next 3 days peeling the flesh off. Right? Anybody? Okay. And then what do we find out? Hey, it turns out you get cancer when you do that. Right? Bad things came out of that time, right? So the whole point is, there's a thing that happens oftentimes. We get these moments in time where all of a sudden what we were doing made us do something different, and it actually was better for us. But at the time, it was like, but I don't want SPF. Man, I want to be golden brown, right? That's what we're after. It turns out that's not good for you. So what do? We lather up with sunblock. You guys, I live in Miami, Florida. Like, I literally wear sunblock all the time now. So, because the sun just doesn't even like me anymore. It's just like, I'm going to nuke you or leave you alone. Like, I have no options. There's no in between. So what I want you to understand is we're going to have a bit of a sunblock conversation real quick. Okay? So the NAR settlement, here's what I want you to, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. The consumer taught us two things. The consumer, and we have to pay attention to the consumer. Okay? The consumer taught us two things. Number one, they don't know what we do. They don't know what we do. Okay? And I'm going to make a good argument for the consumer. If I had to tell you right now, I want you to don't do it because don't yell at me. But if I asked you, what are the 5 reasons, if you were under contract with a buyer right now and you're going to make a $25,000 commission, what are the 5 reasons why you've earned every penny of that? Can you tell me, can you answer that question? And if the answers are, I'm awesome and I provide great service, wrong answer. So the consumer made us, is forcing us to answer a question that we have to be prepared to answer. Okay? It's going to stem from value. The second thing is, we learned a whole another part of kind of where this is going. And what it really came down to, it's going to come down to collaboration. So the main things, and I'm going to just kind of shorten what I was going to talk to you guys about today, and we're going to focus on value, and we're going to focus on collaboration. Okay? All right, so here's the thing I want to talk about on value. So now, if I talk to you on value, first and foremost, if I have to establish a value, so if I have to create a conversation, let's just say with any buyer who questions what I'm worth and why I should get paid, or let's just say I have to have a conversation with the seller as I'm taking a listing who goes, I'll get paid buyer's agent. I'm not doing that. Okay? Either way, I have to be prepared for those conversations. Anybody encountered those yet? Okay? Maybe it's not even showing up in the deal, but at the very least, people are curious. Right? So what I want to give you is I want to give you a few things to help you. So there's an NAR, you can Google this yourself, it's on NAR's website. Based on a survey that they conducted, there are 5 reasons that buyers hire an agent, or where they receive value and have registered that they receive value from an agent. Okay? Number 1, they explain the home buying process. Okay? They explain the home buying process. And by the way, the 5 things I'm going to tell you, you're going to be like, well, duh. Yes, and guess what? We're doing a lousy job marketing this stuff. Because if people really understood, there would never be a question. Does this make sense? So we have to be better marketers, and we'll talk about that in a second. So number 1 is helping people understand the process. Is the process difficult? Yes. Yeah, it's not difficult for us because we do it all day. But when you haven't done it before, or it's been a long time since you've done it, you forget stuff. Okay? And when you're buying a home, it's the small mistakes that go wrong. It's not the big ones. Okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is evaluating properties. Okay? Kathy Hamilton and I were having this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Kathy, you and Joe, how many homes do you think you've shown? Yeah. We ballparked around 1,500, I think. We just picked a number. Okay? You tell me, do you think Kathy Hamilton showing 1,500 homes is a value add if I have her walking with me? Because let's say I bought 4 homes in my entire life. Who's going to be smarter at evaluating if this is good property or not? The one who's done 1,500 of these, or the one who's done 4? Y'all tracking with me here? Okay? So, first off, I need to know evaluating properties. Because how many times have you guys shown a house and you walked in and you were like, oh, this is awful. Oh my gosh. We need to run for the friggin' hills. Or at the very least, you're walking through a house that needs a lot of work and you're like, this is a first-time home buyer. They have like $5 in their bank account. They can't even afford to fix this house if they wanted to. Are you following along? Do you realize how incredibly valuable that is? Right? Okay? The third thing is your service provider list. The thing that they love to experience from how a buyer's agent represent them is their service provider list. Okay? So for example, why do you have the vendors that you have? One of the things I remember having this conversation with Jason is Jason's fee structure. They collapsed their fee structure in terms of what they charge for processing fees. They don't charge an origination fee, and their processing fees. And you'll have to ask him what the number is, but I think it's like $1,400 or something like that. Well, just that simple thing. Do you know how many lenders have additional fees baked in? If it's either a processing charge, they charge $600 for attorney doc prep instead of $300 for attorney doc prep. There are things like that baked into fees that simply just cost your buyer more money. So when you make a recommendation, you're not making a recommendation because like, hey, this is my buddy, he buys me great scotch. No, this is someone who they really have their fee structure locked in, and it actually is cost savings that passes on to your client. Okay? That's the other thing. Or I have, Cindy, a great staging company that I refer and recommend all the time. Okay? And the lady who runs it, she's like anal retentive and everything has to be perfect. So when you hire her to stage your house, woo, man, things are on point, right? Like there's things like that. You need to know why you have a service provider list as to why you have it. It's massive value to your client. Not only is it good for them because you've got good people, but there's usually cost savings baked into that, and you are providing value because of that. Does this make sense? Okay. The fourth thing is, this is actually not even the most important. You negotiate a better deal. You negotiate a better deal. Okay? It's like 40% said they appreciated their agent, and they would use their agent again because they negotiated them a better deal. And the last one on the list is you got them a better price. You got them a better price. All right, so if we take those 5 things right there, okay? Take those 5 things right there. Based off of that, what's your worth? Why should I hire you every time? So I'm going to take those 5 things, then I want you to do this. This is homework later because we're going to, short on time. But what I want you to do on homework, I want you to itemize and put a value on those things. Now, for those of you that have taken a class with me more than once, what am I going to tell you to do? I'm going to ask you to go look at your last 10 buyers that you represented. I need you to have evidence, okay? And when you go look at the last 10 buyers that you worked with, I want you to look at those 5 things. And I want you to actually put a dollar value of what you contributed to your last 10 buyers. Okay? So when someone asks you a question, listen, we're going to go make an offer, or better yet, we're going to go make an offer on this house. I contacted the listing agent. They're offering 1% buyer's agent commission. Because the real answer is you're going to see some zeros, but you're going to see more reductions across the board. So you either take it and just make less money, or you find a way to create the additional value. And I think more often than not, you're going to have to cover your spread, no matter what. Okay? For the record, this is normal for me, because on the commercial side, there's no such thing as BAC, never has been. So every time I do a deal, we always are negotiating our commission, every time, right? And it's just part of the process. It goes into our LOIs, and we just add it as, hey, I want to get paid X for the deal. And it often bases on the type of deal, on how much we charge. If the deal's going to be really complicated, we're charging a heck of a lot more, right? I got one lease I'm making 4.5% on. I got another deal where I'm charging a flat fee, and I got another one where I'm making 2%. Simply just because one's easier and one's not. Does this make sense? So I need to know what my value is so I can always cover my spread so I am making the money that I need to make to keep my economics and my budget in line. So if I take those 5 things and break them down, well, which one do you want to hire me for and which one do you not want to hire me for? Okay? No different than you guys have sat in classes with me and I told you to have different listing packages. Don't have a one-size-fits-all. That's what the consumer's been screaming at us for the last 7 years. They don't want you to have a one-size-fits-all. But what do I want you to have? Remember, I'm just going to remind you of a little conversation. When you go to the movie theater and you want to go order a bucket of popcorn or a Coke, right? At the movie theater, which one do we typically order? Medium. Okay, Lane's the medium person. All right, that's 20% of the population. Some people order the mediums. Who else always orders the large? Yeah, I order the large. Why? Because it's the best value, right? It's a giant bucket. You can barely carry it, but it was only 50 cents more than the medium. Okay? So the question is, which is the worst deal? The small, medium, large, which is the worst deal? The small is the ripoff, isn't it? Because it's only $1 cheaper than the large, and it's 1/3 of the size. So when I tell you to have packages, what am I telling you? Make your small package the ripoff. And what are you really trying to sell? The large, every time. Okay? So what do I want you to do? I don't want you to charge 3%. Throw it out the window. I want you to charge 4 every time and make them choose the 3 if they want. That's what I want you to do. Build your packages differently. Okay? The same thing has to apply on the buyer side. You have to have options. Why? Because you're going to have, I'm going to call it, anybody ever done a walkthrough on a house with a first-time home buyer and dad showed up? Right. So guess what? You can offer a different package for dad. Oh, so the walkthrough, basically my expertise and advice on a home walkthrough, that's kind of part of the things you hire me for, is to be the property eliminator. Be like, I probably wouldn't recommend that you put an offer on this property. If you need dad to do that and not me, well, we can talk about something different. But for the record, I've done this over 1,500 times. Just saying. Is everybody following along with me on this process? This is the part of value that I want to make sure you've got your head wrapped around. And the reason why this matters If I don't understand the value of something, like you guys, I still don't understand the purse thing. I just don't. Ladies, I don't get it. I can't wrap my head around it. It's just a bag. You just carry stuff, right? Like, I have a little backpack I bought on Amazon for $20. I love it. It's great. I don't understand why they pay $1,500 for one. It just doesn't compute in the brain. Mainly because I'm just cheap, okay? But it doesn't compute. But if you want me to understand the value, help me understand. So number one, monetize the value. If I know that I'm paying more money for something and I understand why I'm paying for it, I'll pay for it every time. But if I never understood why I was paying more money for something, I want the cheapest thing every time. You do too, by the way. Okay? If you've never bought, Matt's walking around here with that gimbal, okay? If you've never bought a gimbal before, you know what you're naturally going to do? Buy the cheapest gimbal. But if you understand what gimbals do and how they work, and what amenities they have, and what features they have, and that whole deal is on a swivel and doesn't move, and the camera's stable, and it's not shaky and wobbly and all that stuff, yeah, you'll throw down $300 for one. If you understand it. Does this make sense? If I don't help people understand what I do, I'm going to pick the cheapest option every single time. And that's what has happened in our market, is when people don't understand what we do. How many times you even knew a buyer who went and hired someone cheaper than you? Or they listed with someone cheaper than you. Why did they do it? I want you to take that personal. Did not articulate why they needed me and not them. And then sometimes we're just cheap. Okay? Sometimes people are just cheap, and you're not going to change that. But I want you to be better equipped and more prepared for this. And that's the thing I want you to understand. This conversation of what do we do in this market, what does NARSO ultimately tell us? If every buyer had to hire you and write the check for your commission tomorrow, could you justify it monetarily? Could you tell me, oh yeah, this is why you want to hire me? Okay? Like this, it came up recently for me. We had a deal, I've got a deal put together, and literally just waiting for all the things to fall into play. I'm going to make $363,000 on this deal, but I have over $2.5 million in credits from the landlord going to my tenant. Do you think that my client would be mad about that? They have to pay a portion of that, by the way. Do you think my client's mad? No, I've got $2 million in credits from the landlord. What do they care? Does this make sense? Make sure you have a monetary conversation so you can understand. And I promise you, for those of you in this room, maybe some that are not in this room, but for those of you in this room, I guarantee you pay for yourself and then some on every deal that you do for a buyer. Like, I'll put money on it. I already know you do. I don't doubt that one bit, not for half a second. I already know you do. So I want you to focus on that. Here's the second part of the conversation, that is collaboration, okay? Why are we meeting here today? Okay? At one point in time, the majority in this room, we worked together at Keller Williams. Half of you are still at Keller Williams, including me, and half of you are not. Okay? Here's what matters. In this day and age, we are moving in, we've got some weird stuff going on in our market. And I'm in a conspiracy theory with you for a second. Y'all gonna have to bear with me, okay? I'm in a conspiracy theory for a second. So the first thing I gotta tell you is we have to work together. Bottom line, we have to work together. We are in a place of, I want you to think of this like, one point in time I used to work for a car dealer, and I used to sell BMWs, okay? And I love my BMW, I drive a BMW. I've owned 4 BMWs. I will probably always drive a BMW. However, our conversation right now is not about whether you need to all buy BMWs. This needs to be hey, we all are car owners, and we all drive, and we have to make sure that we do not get in car crashes with each other. Okay? We do not need to run each other over right now. Okay? At this point in time, it doesn't matter. And the reason why we have to collaborate is, number one, we've had a higher deal fallout happening as of more recent. Now, we've all got our theories on that as to why we have deal fallout, lack of education, lack of professionals in our industry, things like that. I'm not going to argue with any of those things, okay? What I am going to tell you is we are going to have to pull people along and collaborate more. And the reason why we have to collaborate more is we have to hold deals together better. All right? So what does it look like to collaborate? I'll give you this. I remember Russ Kimball and I were talking about this. So once upon a time, many moons ago, I used to do studio work as a drummer, as a musician, okay? And I played a few instruments and things like that. And what's cool about when you're a musician You're always collaborating. I might be working on an album, and I'll have people come sit in and record stuff on my album. And then guess what? Because they came and helped me record mine, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go jump on theirs. I'm going to go put tracks on theirs, and I'm not going to charge them because they didn't charge me for putting a track down on mine. Okay? Either way, and then when they have success and their album goes crazy, guess how I feel about it? Look, Joe, that's awesome, man. Congrats, that's great. Congratulations. Fantastic for you, that's amazing. And then when mine does, guess what? They're kind to me and patient with me. Right? What I want you to understand is we have to be in this collaborative environment. And here's part of the reason why I'm saying this. You guys have been the brand guy, I've not been Mr. Collaborative. Okay? Like, I'm calling guilt, not. Okay? So I'm the first one to fall on the sword on this conversation. But no matter what, what's going to happen is we are going to have to come together. Here's why we have to come together. NAR just dropped from 1.6 million realtors to just barely 1.5 and falling. Okay? We're likely projected to be somewhere in the 1.3 to 1.2 range. Last year, NAR raised $63 million, basically money from us. NAR is still one of, not the most, but one of the most powerful lobbyists in DC. They're in the top 5. Okay? And I want to say this to you because I've also been hypercritical of NAR. But here's what I'm learning, and I'm going to give you some things for you to just go find out for yourself. This is what happened with me on the lawsuit, and I realized something. Number one, who benefits the most from this lawsuit? Lawyers getting paid, but somebody had to file it, and somebody had to pay for those lawsuits so the attorneys can get paid. Okay? But I want you to think past the lawyers. Think about the real estate market. Who benefits the most from not paying buyers agents commissions anymore? Sellers. Specifically, what kind of seller? Okay? Sheep sellers? All right. Y'all follow along with me here. So 5-ish, more than 5 years. But in 2014, it technically started. But first of all, the lawsuit's about 5 years old when it was filed. 5 years ago, what was very, very prevalent in our Dallas-Fort Worth market? Multiple offers. How about specifically iBuyers? iBuyers were heavily in our market at that time, up until about 2020, really. 2021, they were still hanging on, but they hit the brakes hard in 2021, and they let off the gas in 2020. From 2014, in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I'm just talking Dallas-Fort Worth right now, nationally as well too, but in Dallas-Fort Worth, from 2014 to 2020, iBuyers were heavily on the gas in our market. Okay? By the way, let's rattle off the names. What are the names of the big iBuyers? Open Door, who else? OfferPad, okay, and Zillow, yeah, okay. So just for fun, I want you to look at those 3 companies, and you can Google this for yourself, so that way I don't sound like tinfoil hat man, okay. Major stockholders in Zillow, major stockholders in Open Door, major stockholders in OfferPad. Guess what they're all going to point to? 2 companies, large hedge funds with multiple subsidiaries. There we go, BlackRock and Vanguard, which they basically own each other. Okay? All of those. So when we think about, and here's the reason why I'm bringing this up, it's important that you know your enemy. I need you to know your enemy. Your enemy is, by the way, BlackRock and Vanguard, do you know why we have a lack of inventory in our housing, and we kind of always will? Because they bought up all the houses, you guys. I mean, let's go over to North Fort Worth. Let's go to Sendera Ranch specifically. Do you know how many homes are corporately hedge fund owned in Sendera Ranch? Almost half of the subdivision. Okay? So just to give you an idea, just to put this in perspective for you, I want you to see something. First off, NAR is not our enemy. I used to think that, I now think very differently. NAR is the only one trying to hold some freaking line. The problem is, they only pay out about $23 million a year in lobby money, and yes, they buy politicians. Y'all knows what lobbying is, okay? I didn't create the rules, it's just part of it, all right? They don't have a strong enough lobby to really make enough dent when you've got a company like BlackRock who's a $9 trillion company. Yeah, trillion with a T, larger than most countries. Okay? So what we're dealing with is, in order to preserve our space and our industry, guess what we have to be? United. This whole thing falls apart tomorrow if we think that we're working against each other. If we're still trying to get ahead of each other. It all falls apart, guys. Okay? And I'm sorry to be doom and gloom, but at the same time, what I need us to understand is the more that we are patient with each other, the more we help each other, the more that we get through a deal. And I'm not suggesting, and y'all hear me when I say this, I am not asking anyone to abandon their fiduciary duty to their client. Let me make that very clear. Do not abandon your fiduciary duty. If you bring me a deal and negotiate, we're going toe to toe, it's just gonna be part of the game. Okay? But guess what? Just like we teach little 3-year-olds, when the game is gonna be done and someone's gonna win and someone's gonna lose, what do? Good game, good game, good game, good game, good game, good game, good game. We need to have a little bit better sportsmanship. We need to be 3-year-olds playing t-ball right now, right? Yes, we're gonna go into a deal, specific deal, but if I'm not in a deal with you, I will share my information and knowledge with you. I will collaborate with you. I will walk you through a deal. I will share what I learned today with 15 other people while I go about my business, right? Like, I want you to understand, what does collaboration ultimately look like? We need to support each other. We need to be there for each other. We have all had a really, really hard 5 years. Okay? We've technically had a hard 8, but we've really had a hard 5. And we have got to be more kind and patient with each other because it's what's going to move us further. Okay? We will carve out our own little chunk. The thing that Jason mentioned earlier too, I'll mention too, is we used to say that 20% of the agents do 80% of the business, 80% of the remainder. It's actually 93-7. So what we're going to see is we're going to see a stronger condensation. The top producers are going to do a lot more, and everyone else is not going to do much of anything. And it's going to be that hierarchy level. So working into that level, it's going to require us to be more, and which means the actual pool of people you're doing business with, that you're actually doing deals with, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so when you get in, I'll tell you, like on the commercial side of the world, it's really tiny. So I can't afford to have anything but great relationships with other commercial brokers, because I will literally not be able to do a deal tomorrow if I burn them. Does this make sense? And I will tell you, we can name names of people who used to be super top producers in the market, and they're not top producers in the market because they decided to be nasty and hard to work with. And that's the part that actually kills off our business and our industry. So, main thing is focus on your value. I want you to collaborate a little bit more and be more patient with each other, like simply down to asking people before I even start a negotiation with you, hey man, how you doing, how's it going? Logan, you good? You know? Like, forget aside this deal for just a second, you okay? You see what I mean? There's just simple things that we just need to operate just a little bit better at right now, because we have to be better, because otherwise if we start fighting against each other, we'll cannibalize each other and we'll all end up with nothing. Okay? All right, that's all I got. All right, so I'm going to shift gears. Okay, everybody okay? Everybody doing okay? All right, so the one I got to call up next is, I assume everybody knows Leslie Akers. If you don't know Leslie, you're going to fall in love here in about 5 minutes. So Leslie, she and I met 10 plus years ago now. And when she came in, you coming? Come on, I'm riffing. So when she came into it, she was my team leader, recruited me over to come to Keller Williams, and we could not be more of we're a good yin yang of each other in terms of opposites, but also work together. And so the things that you don't know, again, she's bad about saying this out loud. If I've ever needed advice, I will tell you right now, especially about the luxury market, this one just knows stuff like the back of her hand. Like, there's all those little tools and tricks and say this, don't say this, and present yourself this way. So anyhow, I just want you to know is she's gonna have that kind of conversation with you and share some things with you. But you guys, like, in terms of leadership, care, a person who will be there, who is who she says she is, who keeps her word to you, like, you guys give it up for Leslie Akers.
You know what? I'm just honored every time I come home. parking lot, I got tickled, and I thought I was being pretty funny. I thought I was being funny, okay? And, you know the song, "You're gonna get low, low." Of course, now that Kroger stole that song, I can't even hear that song that thing about Kroger. But that song came on and I got tickled, because I was thinking about Kroger, and y'all know me, I love to have a pep rally before I go on an appointment, or before I have sales meeting, or just any good excuse for a pep rally. So, anyway, that song came on, and so I got tickled from the parking lot. And I see Amanda and Tricia, so I go down my window and turn it up real loud, you know. I got so tickled. Oh, Michelle couldn't do that. They were like, "What is she doing?"
You said rock star.
I was having my pep rally. Anyway, and then I saw Chris, so it was awesome. But you know, like I said to them, there's never a moment when I have the opportunity to be with you that I don't appreciate it. And I'd say I cry every time. There's nothing wrong, with genuine, authentic gratitude. And I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I look around, I see your faces, you're still beautiful, and thanks, that's
Just so you're, you know.
It's important that you hear it. I look around, I see your faces, and I see joy, and I see tough times, and I see good times, and you're still beautiful and handsome and loving and wonderful. And I remember many of you when you were brand new. I remember many of you when you weren't new, but you're ready to go to the next phase. I remember some of you going through personal struggles, professional struggles, and I'm grateful to have been a part of it. Grateful to have been a part of it, every minute of it. Now, there were some days I left, I told y'all that before, where I'm like, I'm gonna hear another word. Get over it, all right? Where do you do it? But overall, literally, I really didn't mean it when I would leave and say, I'm never coming back. I'm done, they're crazy. But you know, at the end of the day, you just keep coming back because you're loved. I love you. Okay, so today, what are we going to do? I'm going to make something up real quick because he brought me in. I'm kidding. Is Barbara Pinchukso here? I don't think so. No? Good. For one reason. Is Marcy Barkemeyer here? No, good. I just get to read my notes. We just all got back from Luxury Symposium, and I'm kidding. I'm going to stick right here because they would love to hear again some of the points I want to make with you. Okay? But before I do that, I want to touch on a couple things. So, and I'm going to have to look at my notes, which might require these giant glasses. You know, one of my favorite things, Susie Fitzgerald has said so many wonderful things over the years. One of my favorite things, and it's going to come into what I'm actually going to talk about. Sorry guys, I've had this thing. I don't have COVID. I've tested myself over and over. I don't have COVID, but there's just something in my throat. Susie, one day we were griping. Actually Susie was griping, okay? I was listening. It was so funny. And it was a long time ago. It was back when I had Terry Bradshaw's ranch on the market. That's how long ago it was. We were talking about things. Kind of like some of the things that we've been seeing lately. And we talked about this subject that came up was these agents with not just ego, because, thank you, Justin, because y'all, here's the deal. Ego's important. You should have a healthy ego. And self-confidence is part of that. We're going to talk about that. But it's in Susie's words, and it was just so perfect. It's the mutant ego that is the problem. The mutant ego. So I think we need to keep ourselves in check about our ego. It's good to have healthy self-image and a healthy ego, right? Remember Danny used to say this, inside voice, outside voice, right? And that inside voice is really, really important, but I think it is the mutant ego that's gotten a lot of people in trouble the last couple of years. personally. When I heard agents saying, I got us 200,000 over list, I got us 26 offers, what did you get last week on that listing? Why did you get 200,000 over list right now? Okay, you did not make that happen, and you probably managed it beautifully, did some wonderful things, but you're not responsible for the market, right? Ego, mutant ego. Interesting, all right? I see why the public's irritated with our industry. They're not irritated with you. This room. Your heart's in the right place. Your head's in the right place. I genuinely believe each and every one of you are in this business to help someone get to their next chapter in their book and do it at the highest level of professionalism and do it because you care. Do it because you care, right? Y'all are that. And we are collaborative. We are collaborative by nature. And guess when people aren't? I'm not even going to say we. Guess when people aren't? It's when they come from a place of lack. When you're coming from abundance, you give abundantly of your time. You give abundantly of your thoughts. You give abundantly of your heart. You give abundantly of your knowledge. And I'm telling you, your clients feel the difference, and they're impacted by that difference. Unfortunately, our industry has not behaved like that recently. I'm saying recently, like in the last 6-7 years, okay? I don't mean last month. All the deals. Now I'll do it for this. We look shady. We look slippery. Who taught them to ask for all these things? We did. It was a value proposition. I'll work for food if you'll let me. Okay? I mean, literally, we have devalued our industry. We haven't. We haven't. But many agents have. And so I just want to remind you who you are. And that's where we're going to start. I want to remind you of who you are. How many of you got into business before 2008? How many of you got into business after 2008? Yeah. How many of you got into business after 2012? All right. This is, I don't know if y'all remember this or not. Do you know in March of 2012 how many agents we had in our Keller Williams South Lake office? We were at 247. And that was the smallest the office had ever been since I was there. 247, that was in 2012. By the way, if you look at our numbers right now, we are tracking the same number, not agent, I'm talking about sales. We're tracking the similar numbers from 2012. If you look at average home sold, average side sold, you look at all the statistics, we're pretty close to 2012. But what was interesting is we had weathered 2008. I thought of 2008 in the market in Northeast Tarrant County. The overall attitude by sellers was, well, that doesn't pertain to us. It pertains to everybody else in the country. It's not doing that in South Lake, by the way. Our market's staying strong. I remember these conversations, right? Oh, yeah, it's happening here too. And the good news is it's just not as bad as other parts of the country, but it's happening, folks. I remember that plain as day. And so it's been interesting to watch the agent reaction. By the way, what happened in 2009? How many agents were in the business? I'll tell you, we got down to just under 1 million. People were getting in the business and then getting out of it in droves. We're heading that direction again. And here's what I'm telling you, it's good news. It's good news. Our industry needs to thin out just a little bit, and the cream is going to rise to the top. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're all rising even higher and higher and higher. We'll always be the cream. I believe that in you. I believe that in you. Do you believe that in you? Okay, I'm really asking you, do you believe that in you? Okay. Does your marketing say that about you? Does your social media say that about you? Okay, these are all things, I'm gonna get ready to really dig into that with you. If I have time, just kidding, no, we really don't get ready to talk about that. Okay, so let's talk about standards. I talked about this the last sales meeting I was at, so I won't go into too much overwhelming depth in it, but I want to point it out again. Standards. You don't have to answer, you don't have to stand up, you don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to start crying. Do you have any? Have you looked at them lately? Are the standards consistent? Standards aren't wishes. Standards aren't, well, this is what we want to be. This is what we should do. It's who you are. What are your standards? What are you not willing to sacrifice? You've got to get clear on those. Team leads, get clear on that with your teams. What are your standards? And that needs to be very evident with your clients, because guess what? This is the only time it gets to be about you, is in this conversation, because in the business we're in, it's all about them. But if you don't know who you are, how can you help them be the best them? How can you serve them if you don't even know you? Right? What are your standards? They're standards of excellence. I know you. Are you generous? Think about these standards, these expectations. Are you generous? Like Dustin just said? Are you collaborative? Really? Really? Are you collaborative? Are you collaborative to a point? Or are you collaborative? Do you function with poise? When times are tough, are you tough to deal with? When times are tough, do you do what's right because it's the right thing to do? Even when times are great, do you do what's right because it's the right thing to do? I don't know, don't raise your hand. I want you to ask you. Are you doing that? Where's your integrity? Is it in check? In my opinion, it is. I'm just asking you to check it. Are you positive or negative? I love what my brother used to say. Do you wear yes or no on your heart? That's an easy way to think about a positive and negative attitude. I'm not saying it's good or bad. But you either wear yes on your heart or you wear no on your heart. If it's no, let's look at why. Okay? Expectations of self. What are your expectations of yourself? I'm not talking to you about your goals. What are your expectations? Meaning, what are the non-negotiables? What do you expect of yourself? And then what do you expect of those around you? Because that's going to morph into what are your expectations and how are you communicating those to your clients. Speaking of collaboration, what are your expectations of how you deal with other agents and how they deal with you? Okay? Cooperative and collaborative. Those are different things. They're similar, but they're different, right? Collaboration. One of my favorite things I'm doing right now is I'm collaborating with an agent, and it was my seller's idea. I'm not gonna lie, it was his idea, but I love it. I went along with it. I actually am co-listing a big development with another agent who's her own brokerage. I got permission to do this. I'm collaborating with listings in other part of the world with other agents. And it's been interesting to watch because people are like, well, what's that costing you? What did you have to give up to do that? Well, how do you know I'm not gaining? You know I'm gaining every time I do this? Are you kidding? We're going to join businesses. You watch. Depending on how they play. We'll see how they play first. Right? Collaboration. It's not just how we negotiate a deal together and get through it, but how are we collaborating in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things? How are you collaborating with your clients? Are you collaborating on things, or is it just purely transactional? Collaboration. Huge word. I'm going to come back to it. Dustin, you reminded me of something I said to you. Is it important to win, everybody? Yes, by the way. Yes. It's important to win. You win or you don't, right? I must say it. You win or you lose. I'm all for you winning. But we don't win at all costs. You win by doing the right things. And you do the right things over and over for your clients. And when you're doing everything right for your clients, you're winning. Then you put your goals in place so that you know you're hitting milestones. You know you're hitting metrics. Your goals aren't about winning and losing. The only way you lose with your goals is if you don't attempt them. If you don't have them. If you don't make progress towards one, you're losing. Okay? Make sense? So win, but don't win at all costs. I think that's what was happening in our industry. People got down to they had to win at all costs. And it's felt icky. It's just felt dirty. I'm going to come back to these action items quickly. I'm trying to move through here, Dustin. Okay. This I found to be, I didn't want to forget to mention. Oh, the new word. The new word. What do you think the new buzzword is from all the speakers I've been hearing? I heard a little bit of it today. It wasn't called this. I'll just taste it. We don't have time to waste. Immersive. Immersive. So what does immersive mean? It's just a big, beautiful word for deep dive. We're going to get immersive. The trend is the immersive experience in luxury. Immersive. Well, just like Lance was talking about, just like Jason was talking about, and Heather, and Matt, and Dustin, we've got to get immersive with our clients. This has got to become truly, and I know you hear me say it every time, so I'm just going to remind you. This is a business of relationships. And you really, I know we get to hear we need to do something. You've got to get into a relationship with your clients. You've got to get into a relationship. Now, this one, some of you teams aren't going to like this one. I hope you don't mind me saying it. Okay? A name is not a prospect. Okay? A name is not a prospect. You cannot be in relationship with 10,000 people. A relationship. Do you know these people? Do you know their name, really? Do you know how to pronounce their name? When you see their name, do you know how it's pronounced? Do you still see their face when you see their name? I'm talking about your database. If not, guess what it is? It's a name in a list. A big list, right? You've got to get into a relationship with these people or you're going to lose them. Figure out the ones you want. Identify them. Let me come back to that. I'm coming back to a lot of stuff. Immersive. Immersive. We're going to do a deep dive. This one I can't pass up. I'm going to have to talk about it really quickly here. This was so good. Oh my gosh. All right. I took such great notes, I just brought them. There were so many. We had a speaker at the Luxury Symposium. She was brilliant, and she did a lot of mind work, which y'all know I love that. Well, this was right up my alley, because she was great. And I won't go into everything, because this was about 3 hours worth of data. But we were talking about what do people want? What does the luxury consumer want? Let me speak to luxury right now, but at the end of the day, what do people want, right? Everything that Dustin just mentioned, right? And I still believe at the top of that list is, from the buy side, help me find the right home. And when you're finding the right home, it was all 5 of those things that come into play. It's not just find a home, right? But this was really good. So talking about you, talking about your standards, talking about who you are, knowing that we want to get immersive with the client. We got into this session on unconscious biases. It was fascinating, okay? And they show these pictures, two people, right? And listen to this statistic. We make 11 decisions about people in the first 7 seconds we meet them. We make 11 decisions about somebody in the first 7 seconds we meet them. Okay? We do that. This client, oh boy, this one's gonna be a grump, I can tell. Right, or oh my gosh, this one's gonna be the limit. Right? Or, I'm preferring this one, my enemy. Right? Or we're going, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so much fun, I can't wait. Right? So all these things we're noticing just by, it might be just when they open the front door. Holy cow. Right? And they're thinking the same thing, by the way. And if they're an S, they're gonna think about it even longer. So I found this fascinating. So they showed this study and they said, let us show you what we think. So they had all these sets of twins. And these twins, they were dressed identical, and they'd have them side by side. And on this, it was a blind study. This was so interesting. Oh, I wish we could do this study in here. They said, okay, just check just A or B. And they're labeled, the twins were labeled A and B. So they show them the guy sitting here, and you see one twin going. And then the other twin's kind of going. And the question was, who has the most friends? Okay, they have no idea who these people are. They don't know these people. They've never asked them a question. Nothing. They're just sitting up there in front of them. Who's the most fun at the party? Okay, seriously. Then there's this one was my favorite. And they go, you see Barry chewing on a little bit of gum, he's like, who has the best personality? Yeah. I don't know if the gum had anything to do with it, but all of a sudden we all were like, where's the gum? Where's the gum? Where's the gum? Who said, who do you think has been laid in the last year the most often? Okay? And they are ranking these people. I mean, it is just like, they're not even hesitating. A, B, A, B. Who's the most successful? B. Who's the most this? A. Who's the... Never have opened their mouth, and they're identical twins. That study is fascinating, how people are assessing you. So this came down to communication and presentation and sitting here talking about you and your standards and your expectations. Y'all, you need to look in the mirror. Okay? And I want you to ask yourself, would you work with you? Are you who you profess yourself to be? How do you come across? I'm not judging. I'm asking. And I'm asking you to get honest with you. Right? How do people see you? Oh my gosh, let me tell you. My email signature is O. I went back, get on, look at your email signature. Look at your photo. Do you still even look like that person? Right? Now, if you need the soft focus to mute it out, fine. But you got to at least kind of similarly look like the same person. Right? Your font. Does your font look current? Does it look professional? Who is your main demographic? And do you appeal? It's hard to ask that question. It really is, but you need to. Take a deep dive, that's on my list of to-dos. It's gonna be on your list to do, I hope. But it says, you must ask questions to get the idea of the client. So here was the point behind all that. It wasn't just about what you look like, but here was the main message. We're all going to judge to a certain extent on a first impression. Sorry, it happens. And we're gonna judge within 7 seconds. Okay? And you're being judged. Everybody is. Now, I'm not here to say what's right and what's wrong, but you are. We can't assume. Just like when Jason asked that question, if someone asked you, is this a good time to buy? Well, here's I agree with, it depends. But here's what I would say to you. What does it depend on? What they want. We are assuming we know. Well, you know, that's a great question. Let me ask you this. Why have you been thinking about money? What's the goal of this purchase? Are you looking for an income-producing property, or is this going to be the forever home, or what's made you even think about moving lately? Oh, really? And be interested, by the way, not... Get to it! Immerse yourself. Excuse me. Find them interesting. Create interest. Understand you need to know what is their vision, not yours. They don't want to know your vision for them unless they've asked you for that. Y'all, ask them. Understand them. Understand their vision. Understand what they're wanting to do. That's why your question or answer should be, it depends. It doesn't just depend. It depends on what you want. Customer, soon to be client, I hope. Buddy for life if everything goes right. Repeat client, even better. Right? So, ask. So you must ask questions to get an idea of the client vision. In luxury, the client wants to be heard and seen. Show me that you know me. Do you see me? Do you see me? I found that just so telling. Visual markers. In luxury, luxury equals more social markers, right? It's more emotional, it can be more irrational, but what I love is that they call, when the luxury clients have a tendency to be more irrationally loyal. Irrationally loyal when you have heard them and see them. Understand me. Know what makes me tick and understand why and appreciate it. Know me, see me, love me, because I love you. Make sense? It's deep. It's deep. And that's the people who will go, the Dustins, who will go and buy BMW no matter what. That's your Birkin bags. By the way, Dustin, those are not $1,500. They'll start at $45,000. I'm just saying, I don't have one. But they're irrational. Let me give you an example of irrational loyalty. I showed a house with a closet that had a $1 million wedding dress on a clear bodice in a security guarded glass case in the middle of her closet. Then in this section of the closet were the Birkin bags, like 12, 15. And in this section was the Chanel's, and in this section, irrational loyalty to those labels. You want them to have irrational loyalty to you, that you earn it. You earn it. So, by the way, visual markers in luxury. They're looking at body image. Are you comfortable with your body image? They're looking, okay? Confidence. Health. Are you healthy? You want to talk about health subjects with them? Give advice? Are you owning that advice? They're looking. Clothing. What does it say about you and what does it say about them? Doesn't have to be the most expensive. Is it clean? Okay? Are you put together? Do you look like you care enough when you see them? Do you respect me enough, agent, that you would care enough to prepare to be here with me? Because when we're out, you reflect who? Them. This is about them. I'm not saying try to match them. Respect them. They're going to let you know how to respect them, but if you don't ask and you don't learn about them, you don't see them, you don't know them, you can mess up real quick, right? That's my point. Same thing, back again to your materials. Are you who you say you are? If they see you on social media, like you were saying about the memes, honestly, I get memes and emojis mixed up. But I know what a real is. My mom talks about them. She's 83 next month, right? Are you who you say you are? Because let me tell you something. In the luxury arena, they're researching you. They want to know that you're who you say you are. In public and in private. They want to know that you are going to reflect well on them, okay? On them. So this was very, very interesting. I won't take you through the whole thing. What do you think the number one important factor was for luxury clients of the agent? By the way, overall, number one was caring. Not the luxury client, maybe some luxury clients do. But what else would y'all think? What's most important? Knowledge? Experience? Negotiating skills? Appearance? Confidentiality? Trust? What else? Relationships, connectedness. Connections are really important, right? Do y'all know what number one is? Discretion. The number one trait they're looking for in their agent is discretion. By the way, discretion is not only not sharing everything you know about everyone you know, not sharing everything you know about everyone you work with, not sharing everything about you, online or in person. They are looking. They want to see what you say and what you don't say about people. They're Googling you, they're looking at your social media, and they're seeing, does this person look discreet? Are they going to talk about me? Are they going to over-disclose about me? By the way, discretion. Discretion is also, it's multifaceted. It's not just about not disclosing. Your discretion is also behavior. How is your behavior with other agents? They're watching. What you say about other agents in the market, they're listening. Because what you would say about them, those other people, you might say about them. How you treat others. Discretion is deep, deep, deep. If we have more time, we just keep going and going and going. Dig into that word, discretion. And I don't think that should just be for your luxury clientele. I think that should be for your clientele. I really do. And in a world where I think it's hard to know what's true, it seems, especially on social media, well, lately just in the media, it's hard to know what's true and what isn't. I think our people and clients are really looking at that going, can I trust this person? I think the whole time it's about, can I trust you? Do you really have my best interest at heart? Right? They want to know that. So anyway, am I out of time? No, not yet. Good. Not yet. Hang on. No, hang on. They might say yes. Okay, I'm almost done. Then, I'm teasing. Yeah. Hallelujah, I'm almost done. Okay, this was so good. I want to recommend a book. It's by Phil Jones, and it's called Exactly What to Say. It's a great book. Now, it's even better if you'll read it and apply it. Okay? So, I would recommend you use this as a study guide, but y'all know me in words. And some of us are wordsmiths, we love words. Words are huge, but one of the things he said that just, I thought, I've got to share this with you. Okay. Of course, we've always heard you got to find your missing people. But I love this. In your database are only real people. So, if we want to call the CRM something else, but your database can only be, for this conversation, real people. Real people. These are people you actually, like I said, know their name and can actually associate a name with them, even kind of, I think they had brown hair. Maybe. Right? You made a great point. You said we're so consumed with how many leads came in off the internet, spending time on those, that we don't even focus on the people that have already raised their hand and said, you know what, I really like you and trust you already. I'd like to work with you at some point down the road. Let's get focused. Let's be intentional. Listen to this. Database is different than a list of names. You need to be selective and focus only on those people you feel you know or really want to know. Okay? If you want 300 people in this real people database, look at that over the next 5 years. I would ask you a question, squirrel. How many of you are bored in this business now? Be honest. I have come up with more new ways to do different things when it starts getting boring. I mean, honestly. Right? Be honest. How many are just a little bit bored with what we're doing? Just a little. Well, don't raise your hand. I know you are. I know, I can see it. I know which ones of you are. Here's what I'm going to tell you. We're getting ready to create a Magic 18. This is going to be fun. Okay? Your prospect list is a Magic 18. This is all. You can only add 18 people at one time. You cannot effectively work with more than 18 prospects at a time. What? I did that today. How deep are you going? How immersive are you? Are you not even snorkeling? Are you just floating barely on the top? You don't have to raise your hand, not asking for a confession. All right? If you can only work with 18, now, how exciting does that sound? 18 people? I'm going to work with 18 people? Woo. Okay? Now, it could be all 18 people for a year. All right? But let's focus on 18. Let's focus on 18 people. Get this, you're going to love it. Get your prospect list. Your first 6, these are 6 people that are low-hanging fruit. You meet them at an open house. By the way, you're going to have 18, but you're still doing all the activities, right? It's not a get-out-of-work-free pass, right? We're going to get focused. 6 low-hanging fruit people. Met them today. They happen to be driving by. You met them in line at the Madeline. They mentioned mentioned their house hunting, they don't have an agent yet, you look nice, will you work with us, one of those, okay? 6 of those. 6 of your core business. Well, for me, right now, down in a shameless plug, I live in Horseshoe Bay, Texas, that's outside of Austin on our largest constant level lake in the state, which is Lake LBJ. All right? My main markets are Midland. They fly in on Thursdays on their jets, and they fly home on Monday. We love them. We love that, what's his name? President King. Trump, what he said, drill, baby, drill. I'm telling you, my market's so excited because Midland is like 75% of our market. They're awesome. What's the little hearts? They have no water and then just oil. So they come to the lake. They're awesome. I'm going to get very immersive with them. DFW is our second biggest feeder market because this is the second and third home luxury market. It's second on 32% full-time residents, period. Pretty interesting, right? There's no churn. No churn in this market. They buy and they sell. Normally once. Unless they come in, let me start off with $1 million property and say, I want to buy the $8 million lakefront house. Okay, I'm here to help. Okay? That would be mine. So this would be 6 of my core business are people that I'm routinely working with. Lakefront, open houses, doing what I normally would do. And 6 utopian opportunities. What might a utopian opportunity be? I'm hurrying, sorry, Dustin. Let me ask you, these are the people you want to get to know. If you could just stop whatever you're doing and say, you know what? No harm, no foul. I want to go after this group of people. And you get immersive on getting to know them. And here's the thing. If you're churning with people you might never meet, care to meet, whatever, how did you know? It's something on the website. Thank you for visiting. Hi, this is Wes Vickers. I want to thank you for hitting on our website. Let me know if I can ever help you in the future. Then, what if you spent that hour Googling who you want to get to know, looking up research that would substantiate something they're interested in? What if you were to reach out and say, I couldn't help but notice that your family was here in town. I know y'all are interested in so-and-so. Here's a great article on F1. Whatever it is. But we don't have time to get immersive right now with people. So pick the 6 you want to get to know. Or how about this? Pick the 6 locations you want to delve in. And go for it. And be the best at it. Learn it, immerse in it, and stay focused on it. 20% of your time. Not 100% of your time. So, your first 6 you're going to spend 20% of your time on. Your next 6 you're going to spend 60% of your time on. And your 6 utopian areas or people will be also 20% of your business. I want to challenge you to look at your business like this going into 25 and do some things different. And like he said, why are you charging a compensation of 3 and 4%? What would happen if you charged 10? 18 would make a whole lot more sense. And by the way, that first 6 is going to churn quicker, right? It doesn't mean you work with 18 people for the rest of your life. It means you work with 18 people at a time. And when one buys, you get to add another one. Another one buys, you get to add another one. Another one buys. Y'all remember this in the old days when we were new? Move people from your colds to your warms to your hots to your pipeline, close them at that. Right? It's the same thing. Only it's 18. You should have 10 appointments a week. Talk to 10 people. Appointments with 5. Get 2 committed to do something. Rinse and repeat. And by the way, enjoy it. Anyway, I found that fascinating. And this is what he said, and I'm adopting this tagline, I hope you will too. He said, this is how I see a real estate agent's job. I loved it. I'm incorporating it into my branding. We are in the business of helping people make complex and emotional decisions. How true is that? You are in the business of helping people make complex and emotional decisions. And by the way, luxury clients first adapt and relate to feeling, then facts. Just so you know. Okay, Dustin, I'm going to end with that. Any questions? Sorry, I need 2 ahas. 2 ahas, there's been 2 ahas in your meeting.
You just hung on me.
What's your aha?
Well, my biggest aha was reminding me of that deep six specifically, and you're talking about areas and people, and it made me realize that someone else had said this, that the real experts are usually the quietest. So it's also, yes, deep dive and know your six, but share your information, get on social media, make a video, and put that information out there. The real experts are quiet. The people who barely know what they're talking about are typically the loudest. So you're competing against that, so know your information, but share it.
And so with that, because there's so much noise online, you want to make sure that you are presenting it from a place of tenured experience. And maybe that's what you say is, from a place of tenured experience and success in this business over the last 20 years, I find that in this market, the biggest opportunities are, and here's one, versus, here's another tip. Right? Not that you see that either, but any other ahas? Did you get anything out of that? I was jumping around. Did I remind anybody of anything maybe got under the skin? Just a little bit. We can all be better. We can all be better. You're great. So let's take it one more step and be a better great. Okay? You're awesome. No more ahas. How's that?
Okay, everybody, yeah, and I have to do this. Sheila reminded me, thank you, I have to do this. You guys, because it's Leslie Akers, let's give her 3, right? There we go.
My heart, by the way, that was one of those things too, is you want to make people's hearts sing. And how can you make people's hearts sing if you don't know what makes their hearts sing?
That's good.
Right?
Look at you. See, we got her. Good job, you guys. That was what we were after there. So, okay, so a few things I want to tie off for you, just kind of perspective. You guys feeling a little mentally full right now? Yeah, man, good stuff, right? So a few things I want to mention to you. I'm going to skip doing ahas. Let's chat later. But I have one plug to give you, and it's actually for both Leslie and I. Okay. She and I linked up with a guy named Mark King. If you know Mark King, Shel, you know Mark King. Mark King was the former president of Keller Williams International. He stepped away from the company in April of last year, and we formed a consulting company. The primary focus of this consulting company is we focus on wealth and taxes. So for example, one of those things is we have a product that does a 4-week intervention to look at your financial platform, your tax. We have a tax strategist. Basically, everybody does their thing. We've got a whole team of people. We have a tax strategist, we have financial planners. I've got a guy, basically our 4-week intervention product is actually a guy that used to do mergers and acquisitions for Deloitte. And so he walks you through a 4-week strategy that does a comprehensive outlook on your business, your finances, all of those kind of things. My job on the team is I'm the business mechanic. So I'll be leading a weekly business consulting group coaching platform, and Leslie's obviously going to be our luxury consultant. So we're kind of focusing on this. If you want to know more about it, you scan the QR code that you see there. I have 6 spots available for one-on-ones. She has 4. So it's all very tight. If you're interested, great. If you're not, it's okay. But if you scan that, you'll schedule a call on a Calendly link with Kristen King, who will do an eval based off of where you're at, what you're looking for, what you need. You might need me, you might need Leslie, you might need Joe or one of our other people, whatever the case is. You can schedule a consult and do that. Because there's two things. There's a reason why I linked up with Mark. Mark's done very, very, very well for himself. Our key focus is to focus on the why we're all doing this. And why we're doing this is to build wealth and to create generational wealth for our families. And yes, we use this business to leverage the wealth so we can have what we want for our families. That's why you guys know, you've been around me for a long time, wealth and legacy is something I'm talking about on a regular basis. So that's why we're working on a much larger platform to deliver this to you. If you're interested, cool. If not, we'll chat later more about it, okay?
It's not coaching, it's consulting, big difference.
There's a big difference in coaching and consulting, that's right. Consulting, we actually set objectives and we work to achieve objectives. Coaching is, I'm gonna hold you accountable for you to wanna do, and you need coaching too, but consulting is very specific. We're gonna work on a project together for a period of time, and then we're gonna be done. Make sense? Okay? So just to be clear on that, and then the last thing, we got some drawings, right, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, buddy, so the coveted, I mean, we've got the hat, but apparently the coveted Stanley Cup is the, that's all rage these days apparently. So, although it's the little one, ladies, it's not the giant bucket that I see some ladies carrying around, right?
It's still pretty big.
It's still pretty big though. All right, so Matt, who's our winners? How are we doing this?
Let's do, let the silver wear the 44.
Oh,
flags.
right, Heather's drawings, right? That's right.
Ladies first. So first person, you gotta be here to win. Bill Evans.
Oh, Bill just left. Bill just left.
I'm here.
Ah,
You can read the bill.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yay!
Okay, give me a second.
And Bill needs to read that too. Let's stay on, Pat.
All right, we're gonna do the hat next. We got Kim Drees. Still here.
Hey, Kim! All right. All right, what else we got?
Let's do one more book. Rhonda Allen.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, congrats.
And then last one for the Stanley Cup. Colleen Cook.
Oh!
All right, guys, lunch is here.
Okay, that's great. Well, you guys, listen, lunch is out. Are you glad you came? Yes. Is it okay that we were over? You forgive us? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Lunch is out there, generously provided by Independence Title.